Chapter 82. In the tavern, there were a lot of merchants and some wandering martial artists eating and resting here. It was raining heavily outside, so they were too lazy to continue their journey. At this moment, the door of the tavern was pushed open and more than a dozen martial artists walked in. The one at the front was very young and dressed like a young master of an aristocratic family. This man was Shanyang Prefecture's Tao family's eldest young master, Tao Yi. Next to him was a 40-years-old steward who frowned and said, "Eldest young master, we will arrive at Shanyang Prefecture in a day. Let's go back and rest. The herbs we bought from Wei County can't be exposed to the rain." Tao Yi looked impatient and said, "Nonsense, anyway, we have been in the rain for several days, one more day won't make much of a difference. From Wei County to Shanyang Prefecture, how many days has it been since we ate a hot meal? Anyway, this young master can't stand it. Father, you really want to go to Wei County to buy herbs in this season? You can just buy them directly from Qingyuan town. Why do you have to go to Wei County? How much money can you save?" The tavern wasn't big, and now with so many people pouring in, it immediately felt crowded, even to the point that it couldn't sit down. Tao Yi frowned and shouted at the cultivators on Chu Xiu's side, "All of you, get out of my way and scram." Tao Yi's overbearing behavior caused the other Jianghu people to reveal a hint of anger in their eyes. Immediately, someone was about to flare up, but he was immediately pressed down by someone else. Someone whispered a few words into his ear and pointed out Tao Yi's identity. Only then did those Jianghu people give up and obediently prepared to leave. They couldn't afford to offend the Tao family's young master. A cold light flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes, but he didn't say anything. He hurriedly ate 2 mouthfuls of food and prepared to leave. He didn't need to care about a small character that he could easily pinch to death. If his whereabouts were exposed because of teaching him a lesson, it wouldn't be worth it. But at this time, Tao Yi saw that Chu Xiu's movements were a little slow. He was already a little impatient, so he suddenly snorted and directly walked over, slapped Chu Xiu's bamboo hat, and reprimanded, "Didn't you hear me telling you to get out? Dilly-dallying. Do you want this young master to invite you out?" The moment the bamboo hat was thrown away, Tao Yi saw Chu Xiu's dark face. He didn't care at first, but at this time he seemed to suddenly think of something, and his eyes suddenly showed a touch of panic. Although he forced himself to calm down, his cheeks couldn't help but twitch. Tao Yi turned around calmly and glanced at the food on the table. He snorted disdainfully and said, "Really, this small place can't even cook well. What are these things? Pig food? Forget it, I'm not eating anymore. I'll go back to Shanyang Prefecture." The manager of the caravan was dumbfounded. He didn't know what this young master was up to. "Just now, you were the one who said that you hadn't eaten a hot meal for a few days, and now you're complaining that the food is bad. It seems like the young master's temper is getting worse every year." However, at this moment, no one noticed the uncontrollable fear on Tao Yi's face. He knew Chu Xiu. Although he hadn't spoken to Chu Xiu, he had seen Chu Xiu a few times at the Shanyang Prefecture auction. Originally, he didn't have a deep impression of him, but as Chu Xiu did these things, his impression of Chu Xiu became extremely deep. Not to mention the destruction of the Zhang family, others couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the death of Zhang Baitao and the other 3. Even if they heard it, they wouldn't say anything. But the forces of Shanyang Prefecture were very concerned. They didn't expect that Zhang Baitao, who came from the Ba Mountain Sword sect, would still fail to kill Chu Xiu with 3 Khanate experts, and lose miserably. And as Tao Yi brought the caravan back from Wei Prefecture to the Yan Kingdom, the news about Chu Xiu had spread throughout Linzhong Prefecture. In the fight for the secret box in the Liuyang Mountain Relic, he had schemed against the young master of the Morgue village, Nye Donglu, and by Wuji, the 2 Jianghu elites of the fluttering Snow City, in front of everyone. His courage was boundless, and he had no scruples. From that moment on, Tao Yi was certain that this person was a fanatic who had no scruples at all. For the sake of profit, he would do anything. But his state was too high. His opponents were the big clans of Linzhong Prefecture, and even the famous sects like the Morgue village and the fluttering Snow City in the northern Yan. They had nothing to do with the Tao family, a small family that could only show off in Shanyang Prefecture. But Tao Yi had never thought that he would meet Chu Xiu here. He knew what kind of situation Chu Xiu was in now. He was wanted by the Morgue village and was being hunted by all the martial arts masters in Linzhong Prefecture. If he sold his information, he could get a lot of money. But the problem was, Tao Yi did not dare to do it now. At the moment, Tao Yi only hoped that Chu Xiu did not notice anything wrong with him. Everything had to wait until he left this place. But unfortunately, things did not go according to his wishes. Just as Tao Yi was about to leave, Chu Xiu said faintly, "Young Master Tao, are you going to leave just like that?" Tao Yi's frightened eyes could not hide from Chu Xiu. Although he pretended to be calm on the surface, Chu Xiu could still hear the sound of his heart beating when he was nervous. Tao Yi turned his head and pretended to be calm. "What do you mean? Do you know me?" Chu Xiu did not speak. He just slowly took out his red sleeve knife from the secret box. The moment he saw the red sleeve knife, Tao Yi suddenly panicked. He hurriedly shouted, "Chu Xiu, my Tao family has no grievances with you. Even if I know your information, I will not say it. If you let me go, I promise not to leak your information." Hearing that the person in front of them was Chu Xiu, who was wanted by the Morgue village, the Tao family stewards were suddenly shocked. But then they secretly thought that it was not good. It was okay if Tao Yi did not speak before. Now he said it in public. This was simply forcing Chu Xiu to kill him. Sure enough, the moment Tao Yi shouted those words, a crimson saber light had already appeared in front of him. "No!" Tao Yi roared angrily. He didn't want to die here. He didn't want to carelessly lose his life here because he had slapped Chu Xiu's bamboo hat away. He still had the hidden weapon of Qianji sect given to him by his father. It was used to save his life in critical moments. It was said that if used well, it could even hurt a Xiantian warrior. But as soon as he put his hand in his pocket, Chu Xiu's knife had already arrived. The crimson knife light flashed and scarlet blood splashed. Tao Yi's eyes were still flickering with unwillingness as his head fell to the ground. He was the only legitimate son of the Tao family. Such a great family business was still waiting for him to inherit. But he died here today. The cause of his death was extremely funny. He was 23 years old and died because of his dirty hands. If he had not hit Chu Xiu's bamboo hat and seen something he should not have seen, he would not have died here. When the steward of the Tao family's caravan saw this scene, he immediately screamed in horror. More than a dozen members of the caravan began to flee frantically. The rest of the people in the tavern, except for a few ordinary people who really did not know martial arts, even smashed the walls and ran away screaming. Recently, Chu Xiu's reputation in Linzhong Commandery was very big. It should be said that those who could be wanted by the righteous manner and chased by the whole Jianghu forces in Linzhong Commandery were all famous. Not only did LV Yangshan plot against Nie Donglu and Bai Wuji, but other things that Chu Xiu had done in Linzhong Commandery were also dug out. Zhang family of Shanyang Prefecture, Zhang Baitao and the other 3 people, and Cold River Prefecture also had his traces. After all, there was a fish from the Black Tiger gang who had escaped the net in Cold River Prefecture. Although they had been scared out of their wits, they still spread the news about Chu Xiu. In this way, the number of Xiantian warriors who had died in the hands of Chu Xiu had already exceeded 10. Fierce man. Absolutely fierce man. Hearing the screams around him, Chu Xiu did not chase after them. He could not catch up anyway. Dozens of people fled in all directions. Even if dozens of pigs ran like this, Chu Xiu would not be able to kill them all in a short time. He just looked around and sighed. He was only one step away, but in the end he was forced to kill. At this moment, a stern shout came from outside, "Chu Xiu! Stop hiding and come out to die!" Outside the ruined tavern, 4 inner strong realm warriors surrounded Chu Xiu in the center. Their eyes revealed a glint of dense killing intent. They had been searching in the vicinity before. Now that they heard the commotion, they immediately rushed over. Seeing Chu Xiu, the 4 inner supreme realm martial artists sighed inwardly. The young manor master's predictions were like that of a god. Chu Xiu was indeed in this place. Originally, the major forces of Linzhong Commandery had spread out to search. Among them, they had found traces of Lu Fengxian, but Lu Fengxian had escaped. Chu Xiu was even better at hiding. Even with the intervention of wind-sweeping building, they had not been able to dig out Chu Xiu. Later, it was Nie Donglu who personally made the decision to ignore other places and only focus on the area near Wei Commandery. The reason was simple. Since Lu Fengxian had escaped to West Chu, Chu Xiu could only choose to escape to Wei Commandery or the extreme north of Liaodong. The latter was the territory of the extreme north's floating snow city. If Chu Xiu escaped there, they could not do anything about it. Naturally, the extreme north's floating snow city would take care of him. Therefore, the area near Wei Commandery was the place where they strictly searched and sent most of the inner strong realm warriors here. They did not expect that Chu Xiu would really appear here. Chapter 83. For internal strong realm martial artists besieging an innate realm martial artist. Not to mention watching it, even hearing it sounded like bullying. In fact, it was Chu Xiu's bad luck. Most of the people who participated in the search were below the internal strong realm. Because it was raining outside, these 4 internal strong realm martial artists were too lazy to search in the heavy rain. They gathered together and prepared to find a place to take shelter from the rain. Anyway, as long as they found Chu Xiu, the other martial artists would naturally make noise and send them a message. Therefore, as soon as there was movement here, 4 internal strong realm martial artists were immediately attracted. One of the 4 sneered and said, "Everyone, let's not talk about who gets the secret box from Chu Xiu first. But his life will be taken by the Yu clan of the Bailing." The other 3 nodded indifferently. Anyway, to them, Chu Xiu's life did not matter. They were mainly here for the secret box. It seemed that they had also heard that Chu Xiu had offended the Yu clan of the Bailing during the treasure hunt in Luyang Mountain. 3 innate rankers had been killed by Chu Xiu, and 1 had been seriously injured. Moreover, the secret box in Chu Xiu's hands had been snatched from the Yu clan of the Northern Mountain. It was normal for the Yu clan to want Chu Xiu's life to regain some face. Just as the 4 people did not take Chu Xiu seriously and were still discussing how to kill Chu Xiu suddenly raised his head. His eyes were filled with killing intent, and the crimson saber light was already slashing towards the internal strong realm martial artist from the Yu clan of the Bailing. This was a strike that Chu Xiu had condensed all his strength and exerted to the extreme. Azure Dragon goes to sea, crimson rain falls. The Yu clan's internal strong realm martial artist was still cupping his hands towards the other 3, thanking them for giving him face. But in the blink of an eye, Chu Xiu's saber had already arrived in front of him. The bright red saber light was like a blood-soaked green dragon lurking under the surface of the sea. When it was not attacking, it hid in the depths of the 9 nether abyss, but when it attacked, it broke through the sea and soared into the 9 heavens. In particular, Chu Xiu had condensed the killing intent of the piercing the sun and moon technique onto the blade. The power contained in the blade was even more frightening. The inner strong realm martial artist from the Yu clan of Bailing felt his heart skip a beat. He subconsciously retreated, and a green light erupted from the long sword in his hand. 9 sword flowers bloomed in front of him. Although a martial artist in the inner force realm couldn't release his gang qi, it wasn't a problem for him to condense it in his hands or weapons. However, when the saber and the sword collided, the power of Chu Xiu's saber suddenly exploded. The power of piercing the sun and moon immediately shattered the gang qi, and the inner gang realm martial artist's long sword actually shattered. In his shock, the inner force realm martial artist from the Yu clan of Bailing subconsciously gave way. Chu Xiu didn't continue fighting, and took the opportunity to run directly towards the dense forest on the other side of the path. The other 3 people were just about to attack, but they didn't expect that the Yu clan of Bailing would only block 1 move before giving way. The 3 people complained, "Old Yu, what the hell are you doing? You can even retreat when an inner force realm martial artist is facing an innate realm martial artist. Does your Yu clan not want to take revenge?" The Yu clan martial artist from the Yu clan of Bailing said angrily, "What do you know? There's something strange about Chu Xiu. The strength of that saber strike just now was extremely shocking. Moreover, he had a secret technique that allowed him to burst forth with a might comparable to gang qi in the Xiantian realm. If I hadn't retreated just now, that saber strike would have injured me. Think about it, if Chu Xiu was really a simple person, how could he defeat the young master and the people from the northern fluttering snow city on Liang Mountain? Stop talking nonsense. Go after him. The three people couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with the Yu clan of Bailing. They immediately chased after Chu Xiu. At this moment, Chu Xiu had to thank the rain. An inner force realm martial artist had sharp senses, but it was raining heavily outside. It would more or less affect the four people's senses and cover up Chu Xiu's tracks. This also caused the four people to be unable to catch up with Chu Xiu for a while in the dense forest. The four people looked at each other and sneered. They immediately spread out and began to search around the dense forest towards the center. Although Linzhong Commandery was called Linzhong Commandery, it referred to the time when the northern Yan kingdom had just been established. This place was mostly barren mountains and dense forests, and was rarely visited by humans. However, there were not many large forests in Linzhong Commandery at this time. With the four people working together to search, they would be able to force Chu Xiu out sooner or later. At this moment, in the dense forest, Chu Xiu's expression was incomparably cold. There was no panic, only calmness. A strong murderous aura surrounded him. The aura was a little vague, but Chu Xiu could feel that the other party was probably trying to surround him. It was not that Chu Xiu had not killed an inner force realm martial artist before. Although it was extremely difficult for Chu Xiu to kill Su Chongyang, after killing Su Chongyang, Chu Xiu had also gained a lot of experience in dealing with inner force realm martial artists. He had also refined the purple dogwood and his strength had improved greatly. In Chu Xiu's opinion, any one of these four inner force realm martial artists was actually not as good as Su Chongyang. After all, Su Chongyang was from the giant spirit gang. The competition between him and the martial artists of the six gangs was fierce. Su Chongyang's strength was definitely stronger than these martial artists from ordinary families. And most importantly, the Giant Spirit Gang's 72 Paths Giant Spirit Martial Arts was a collection of the Giant Spirit Gang's several generations of powerhouses. It was inclusive and exceptionally powerful. In terms of martial arts, Su Chongyang also had the advantage. Back then, Chu Xiu could kill Su Chongyang. Now, it would not be difficult to kill them one-on-one. However, the problem was that the four of them joined forces. Chu Xiu could only run for his life. He had to find a way to defeat them one by one. Feeling that one of the murderous auras was getting closer, Chu Xiu deliberately left more marks on the ground for the martial artist to catch up. After being washed away by the heavy rain, the marks would be immediately washed away after being seen by one person. After going back and forth like this, one of them had already pulled away from the other three. Chu Xiu stopped and retreated a long way back. He hid in a tree. A moment later, a martial artist chased after him. It was the martial artist from the Yu family of Bailing. The marks left behind by him retreating were actually different from those left behind by normal walking. However, because of the heavy rain, all the marks had become fainter. The martial artist did not react and continued to follow the marks quickly. Just as he passed by the tree where Chu Xiu was hiding, Chu Xiu suddenly exploded. The aura on his body exploded and the red sleeve saber slashed down. The surrounding heavy rain was completely cut apart by the power of the saber. The murderous aura tore through the curtain of rain and slashed towards the martial artist from the Yu family of Bailing. This sudden saber and the sudden burst of murderous aura made the martial artist from the Yu family of Bailing feel alarmed. However, Chu Xiu's saber was too vicious and swift. When he turned around, Chu Xiu's saber had already reached him. In a hurry, the Yu family's inner strength realm martial artist struck out with his palm. Green vigor chi appeared on his palm. He wanted to slap Chu Xiu's saber off course, but unfortunately, it was too late. His weapon was a sword. When he was in the Yu family, he mainly practiced sword techniques. His martial arts could only be said to be sloppy and ordinary. He could not be compared to Su Chongyang at all. In the past, Su Chongyang could almost slap Chu Xiu's red sleeve saber out of his hand with his bare hands. Now, when the martial artist from the Yu family of Bailing's palm landed, it was directly negated by the murderous aura. Instead, it stabbed his left palm and made it bleed. The crimson saber light slashed down. Even though the martial artist from the Yu family of Bailing tried his best to dodge, he was still hit by the saber light. He immediately grunted and one of his arms flew to the side. Blood splattered everywhere. Having one of his arms chopped off, the martial artist from the Yu family of Bailing became even more ferocious. He used the fingers of his right hand as a sword and displayed the Yu family's secret mountain calming sword technique. Although the force of his fingers was small, it was majestic. It landed on Chu Xiu's red sleeve saber and let out a loud clang, causing Chu Xiu's figure to retreat. At this moment, Chu Xiu took advantage of this opportunity to sheath his saber and displayed the great grappling hand. As his arms entangled, no matter how majestic his opponent's mountain calming sword technique was, he could not break free from Chu Xiu's grasp with only one arm. Chu Xiu directly tore off his right arm. For a martial artist, having both arms crippled was basically no different from death. However, it must be said that the vitality of a martial artist in the inner strength realm was very tenacious. Even without both arms, the martial artist from the Yu family of Bailing channeled his inner force into his legs and kicked at Chu Xiu. He was not trying to fight with his life on the line. He just wanted to live. In his current state, there was no way he could escape. He could only hold on to Chu Xiu until the other three arrived. At that time, he could live, but Chu Xiu had to die. Seeing this scene, Chu Xiu immediately frowned. Unable to kill him in one blow, it was troublesome to deal with a martial artist in the inner strength realm. Of course, it was only slightly troublesome. The martial artist from the Yu family of Bailing had not learned any leg techniques. It was impossible for him to simply hold on to Chu Xiu. After a few moves, he was stabbed in the chest by Chu Xiu's saber. Just as he was about to breathe his last, three figures quickly rushed towards him. He could only close his eyes with a hint of unwillingness. He was still one step too late. Chapter 84. The warrior from the Yu family of Bailing who was killed by Chu Xiu sighed that he was a step too slow. In fact, Chu Xiu was also sighing that he was a step too slow. He did not expect this internal strength realm warrior to be so difficult to deal with. Of course, the ones who were the most shocked at this moment were the three people who were chasing after Chu Xiu. Looking at the two broken arms on the ground and the warrior from the Yu family of Bailing hanging from Chu Xiu's blade, the three of them could not help but feel a storm in their hearts. How long had it been? It was at most the time it took to brew a cup of tea. In the end, the warrior from the Yu clan of the Northern Mountain was killed by Chu Xiu. The three of them had to re-evaluate Chu Xiu's strength. He was so strong that he did not seem like a warrior of the innate realm. After seeing this scene, the three of them no longer dared to look down on Chu Xiu like before. They surrounded Chu Xiu with a serious look in their eyes. It was not rare for an innate realm warrior to kill an internal strength expert. For example, Nie Donglu, the young master of the morgue, and Bai Wuji, who looked like a playboy but was actually called a lunatic by the people of the northern fluttering snow city, all had such strength. But now, Chu Xiu, a rogue cultivator who was born in the wilderness, had actually displayed such strength. This was a little too much. If they could not kill him today, endless troubles would be waiting for them. The three of them exchanged glances. Without saying a word, they began to attack Chu Xiu in a frenzy. In that instant, Chu Xiu felt an immense pressure bearing down on him. He could rely on his strong explosive force to fight against an internal strength realm warrior, but no matter how strong his explosive force was, he could not kill all three of them. After only a few moves, Chu Xiu was beaten back by the three of them, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Although it was not glorious for three internal strength realm warriors to besiege an innate realm warrior, it was still effective. At least for the current Chu Xiu, he had been forced into a dead end. Holding the red sleeve blade, Chu Xiu wondered if there was any other way out and if he should use his trump card. Chu Xiu's trump card was very simple. It was the three blades of Avicii. For the past few days, Chu Xiu had been running for his life and had not started to practice the cultivation method that he had obtained from the secret box. However, because the three blades of Avicii had been imprinted into Chu Xiu's mind through the technique transmission jade slip, Chu Xiu was constantly visualizing the power of this blade in his mind even when he was fleeing for his life. It could be said that if Chu Xiu really made a move now, he was confident that he could make the first blade. However, as for the power of this blade and whether Chu Xiu could control this power, even Chu Xiu himself could not be sure without going through detailed deliberation and experiments. Just as Chu Xiu clenched the red sleeve blade in his hand and was ready to fight for the last time, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The other 3 martial artists who were chasing him also felt the same. They were closing in on Chu Xiu, and their movements also stopped. Raindrops fell from the sky, but unknowingly, the surroundings began to become silent. Whether it was the sound of raindrops falling to the ground or the sound of the breeze blowing through the forest, they all strangely disappeared. Amidst the hazy drizzle, a man walked out of the rain mist. His figure seemed to have blended into the world. When the raindrops were about to fall on him, they strangely deviated from their original positions and slid to the surroundings. It was very strange, but also very harmonious, as if he was supposed to be like this. When that person came closer, everyone present could clearly see the other person's attire. It was very strange. The person who walked over was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed boots and a black tight-fitting warrior suit. On his head was a very strange black conical hat. The iron conical hat was inlaid with an abstract golden dragon pattern as a decoration. The most peculiar thing was that he wore a black iron mask on his face. The style of the mask was very simple, only revealing the eyes. There was no facial expression at all. At first glance, it looked very ordinary, but at a closer look, it gave people a kind of creepy feeling. Moreover, it wasn't a bare mask. On the mask, there was a star diagram of the Star of Sin, one of the 36 celestial dipper star diagrams. The moment they saw this person, the 3 people who were chasing after Chu Xiu immediately trembled. They tremblingly spat out 3 words, Blue. Blue Dragon Society. The person faintly said in a hoarse voice, E-Mountain's Lu family, Qinling's Chao family, Ling State's Yen family. What a coincidence, your 3 families are all gathered together. Since you know who I am, then you should know what I'm here for. Your 3 families have forced someone into a corner. Someone has taken out a secret treasure to buy the lives of your 3 families. Since you all happen to be here today, then hand over your lives. The 3 people's eyes revealed a trace of fear. Without saying anything, they directly split into 3 directions and turned to flee. The mysterious person's figure didn't move. He took a step forward, and the drizzle in front of him actually connected into a line, condensing into a thin sword. As he waved his hands, the invisible raindrops condensed together and turned into a powerful sword chi that tore through the void. With a loud bang, it directly blasted a fist-sized hole in the chest of a warrior. At this time, he directly grabbed at the warrior on the other side with one hand. Powerful gang chi condensed in his hand, and the surrounding raindrops dodged to the side, forming a hole. As he clenched his fist, there was a loud bang, and the warrior was forcibly crushed in midair by him. The corpse was blown up into minced meat by the gang chi. The last warrior ran a little further away. The mysterious person only took a light step forward, but it was as if the ground had shrunk to an inch. He directly crossed a distance of more than 100 feet. He gently placed a hand on the warrior's neck, and the head was already in his hand. The corpse actually ran more than a dozen steps forward before falling to the ground. Crushing. It was an absolute crushing. Chu Xiu couldn't see the strength of the other party, but his strength was definitely several realms higher than those 3. To be able to injure people with gang chi from more than 100 feet away, the other party was 100% an existence that surpassed the physical invulnerability realm. He might even have reached the realm of 3 flowers at one's prominence or 5 chis in the origin, or even a great master in the realm of oneness of heaven and man. Of course, the strength of the other party was no longer important. What was important was the identity of the other party. Just now, the 3 people had already revealed the identity of the other party. Chu Xiu could also recognize the other party's clothing. If there was no accident, this person should be one of the 4 spirits of the 4 spirits fusion. He was a member of the largest assassin organization in Jianghu, the Blue Dragon Society. The Blue Dragon Society, the White Tiger Hall, the the Vermilion Bird Pavilion, and the Black Tortoise Sect. These 4 sects were known as the Four Spirits Fusion. Its roots could be traced back to the top sect of the ancient times, the Four Symbols Divine Sect. These 4 sects could be said to be the inheritors of the Four Symbols Divine Sect. However, due to various reasons, they eventually split up and developed on their own. The strangest thing was that each of them developed into a top force in Jianghu. Therefore, they were also known as the Four Spirits Fusion. Among them, the Blue Dragon Society was a powerful assassin organization that could be found throughout the entire Jianghu. The killer from the Blue Dragon Society threw away the head in his hand and took a step forward. He arrived in front of Chu Xiu and looked at Chu Xiu with interest. Chu Xiu also looked at the other party. There was no hostility in his eyes. In fact, for an expert like this who could kill him with one move, hostility was the last thing he needed. After a while, the expert from the Blue Dragon Society suddenly said, "Chu Xiu, I've heard of you." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "In the entire Linzhong Commandery, there are probably only a few people who haven't heard of my name." Hearing Chu Xiu say this, the interest in the eyes of the expert from the Blue Dragon Society became even stronger. Interesting. In the past few years, there weren't many people who could make Nie Donglu suffer a loss. There weren't many who could kill an inner invulnerability expert at the innate realm. Are you interested in joining the Blue Dragon Society? The things you snatched from Nie Donglu are treasures to others, but the Blue Dragon Society doesn't care. Join the Blue Dragon Society and your life will be guaranteed by the Blue Dragon Society. Chu Xiu pointed at the corpses of the 3 martial artists on the ground and said indifferently, "If I say no, I'll probably end up like the 3 of them." The expert from the Blue Dragon Society shook his head and said, "That won't happen. The Blue Dragon Society has rules. When no one pays us, we don't like to kill innocent people. Similarly, the Blue Dragon Society will only protect our own people. I'm a very reasonable person. If I didn't appear just now, you would have been killed or captured by those 3. Now, there are many people out there looking for your whereabouts. If you aren't a member of the Blue Dragon Society, why would I protect you? I'll bring 3 more inner invulnerability realm martial artists in front of you, then leave and return to your previous state. That's reasonable, isn't it?" Chu Xiu didn't say that he had a trump card to break out of this situation. He only smiled bitterly and said, "That's no different from courting death. However, I just want to ask, why did seniors suddenly ask me to join the Blue Dragon Society on a whim? Or is it because the Blue Dragon Society is so simple in recruiting assassins nowadays?" The expert from the Blue Dragon Society stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "I didn't ask you to join the Blue Dragon Society on a whim. It's because my Blue Dragon Society, to be more precise, my branch is lacking people. It's so lacking that I, the branch leader, have to personally deal with 3 small fries. Therefore, whenever I see someone I feel is suitable, I'll try to recruit them. As for the conditions for the Blue Dragon Society to recruit assassins, there aren't many. I'm the branch leader, so naturally, I have the final say." Chapter 85. In the face of the Blue Dragon Society's recruitment, Chu Xiu didn't refuse. He didn't have the qualifications to refuse. However, when he heard that the other party was a branch leader, Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. Seeing the surprise in Chu Xiu's eyes, the Blue Dragon Society expert pointed at the black iron mask on his face and said calmly, "Blue Dragon Society's Big Dipper 36 divisions. I'm the branch leader of this Heavenly Sin branch. What's so strange about that?" Chu Xiu shook his head. Right now, there was nothing strange about it. However, he remembered something about this branch leader. If the Heavenly Sin branch didn't have a new branch leader, then this person in front of him would stir up quite a storm in the entire northern Yen land. Now that Chu Xiu couldn't escape from the Linzhong Commandery, he had no choice but to agree to this person's request. He could only wait to be hunted down. However, Chu Xiu needed time to recuperate. Joining the Blue Dragon Society was a good choice. As for whether it was a good choice or a bad one, Chu Xiu wasn't sure. Most importantly, Chu Xiu knew that this Blue Dragon Society's Heavenly Sin branch leader would stir up quite a storm in the northern Yen land in the future. If Chu Xiu followed this person, he might be able to get a share of the pie. At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly asked, "But what if I leak the Blue Dragon Society's secrets or escape from the Blue Dragon Society?" The Blue Dragon Society's branch leader asked in return, "Does it feel good to be hunted?" Chu Xiu shook his head. The Blue Dragon Society's branch leader said calmly, "If you betray the Blue Dragon Society, your fate will be 10 times worse than this, maybe even 100 times worse." Lowering his head, Chu Xiu slightly raised his eyebrows. If he really betrayed the Blue Dragon Society, his strength would be 10 times stronger, maybe even 100 times stronger. Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said to the Blue Dragon Society's branch leader, "May I ask how I should address you, Sir Branch Leader?" The Blue Dragon Society's branch leader casually waved his hand and said, "Most people in the Blue Dragon Society don't have names, only code names. I'm the branch leader of the Heavenly Sin branch. Since you are my subordinate, just call me branch leader. If you meet other branch leaders in the future, just add their name in front." Looking at the surrounding corpses, the Heavenly Sin division leader shook his head and said, "Killing is not allowed. Come with me. Those people won't be able to find you. Come with me, those people won't be able to find you." Chu Xiu followed behind the Heavenly Sin branch leader. Feeling the other party's aura, Chu Xiu could already confirm that the other party was definitely an expert who had gathered the 3 flowers, condensed the 5 qi, and finally reached the realm of being one with the world. Above the 5th level of qi controlling was the 3rd level of spirit condensation. Once one reached the 3rd level of spirit condensation, one would be at the Grandmaster level. As for the realm of being one with the world, one would be the strongest under the Grandmaster level. Such an existence was only a branch leader of the Blue Dragon Society, and the Blue Dragon Society had 36 Big Dipper divisions, so there were at least 36 branch leaders of this level. Of course, with the addition of the people from the Blue Dragon Society's headquarters, this number was definitely much more than 36. Chu Xiu could also be considered to have a preliminary understanding of the Blue Dragon Society's strength. Although it could be said that Chu Xiu joining the Blue Dragon Society now was half-forced, in reality, this might not be a bad way for the current Chu Xiu. The Blue Dragon Society's strength was so strong that even a branch was enough to temporarily keep Chu Xiu safe for a period of time. The Heavenly Sin branch leader had the strength of being one with the world, so his perception was incomparably strong. He easily led Chu Xiu around the martial artists of the Jianghu who were chasing him, all the way to the Mount Tai County south of the Linzhong County. That was where the Heavenly Sin branch was located. At this time, the people of the big sects who were searching for Chu Xiu also learned about Chu Xiu from the martial artists who escaped from the taverns. They also knew that there were already 4 internal Aura Realm martial artists chasing Chu Xiu, so they were very relaxed, because this time, Chu Xiu definitely wouldn't be able to escape. Therefore, they weren't in a hurry to rush over. Instead, they first informed Nie Donglu to come over before rushing over together. The group of people walked toward the dense forest along the tracks that had been washed away by the heavy rain. However, not long after they stepped into the forest, they saw scarlet blood flowing out. At first, they didn't pay much attention to it, thinking that they had either injured or killed Chu Xiu. However, the more they walked, the more they felt that something was wrong. Why was there so much blood? The 4 of them weren't perverts. Could it be that they had dismembered Chu Xiu's body into 1,000 pieces? Otherwise, why would there be so much blood? Nie Donglu frowned. He felt that something was wrong and immediately ran forward with his people. What appeared in front of them wasn't Chu Xiu's corpse, but 3 corpses and a pile of disgusting minced meat. Seeing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. What exactly was going on? 4 inner invulnerability experts teamed up to kill Chu Xiu, but they were killed by Chu Xiu instead? Nie Donglu didn't make a fuss like the others. Instead, he sent someone to check the corpses with a gloomy face. After that person looked at the corpses, he whispered into Nie Donglu's ear, Nie Donglu said in a low voice. Among the four, one was killed by Chu Xiu. The other three were definitely not killed by Chu Xiu. One of them was killed by a sword chi through the chest, another was crushed by a powerful gang chi, and the last one was beheaded by a sharp gang chi. All three were killed with one move. Clearly, the attacker was more than one realm higher than them. The opponent could be a great expert in the Three Flowers realm, the Five Chis realm, or even the Oneness of Heaven and Man realm. Everyone present looked at each other. Experts of this level were no longer nobodies in the Jianghu. They were people who could start their own sects no matter where they went. Not those small sects, but the big sections. According to their investigation, this Chu Xiu was born in the wilderness and had no connections. So who killed them and saved Chu Xiu? Nie Donglu frowned. He had a feeling that things had gotten out of his control. Looking at the people in front of him, Nie Donglu said in a low voice, "Everyone, Chu Xiu's whereabouts will continue to be listed as wanted. However, change it from a manhunt to a search. Don't do anything for now." Everyone present nodded. With such a thing happening, they didn't dare to do anything. Just as the large sects of the Linzhong commandery were in a state of bewilderment, Chu Xiu followed the Heavenly Sin branch leader to a barren mountain in Mount Tai commandery. Beside a seemingly unremarkable cave, the Heavenly Sin branch leader knocked on the wall a few times in a seemingly random manner. Immediately, a door appeared in the wall. "Go in. This is where the Heavenly Sin branch is located." Chu Xiu followed the Heavenly Sin branch leader. Beyond the door was a different world. There was actually a large underground palace. Going down to the bottom of the underground palace, there was a practice field in the center. There were close to 100 warriors in black warrior clothes. However, perhaps because they were in the branch, they didn't wear their iron hats. Instead, they carried them on their backs and hung their iron masks on their waists. Seeing the Heavenly Sin branch leader return, the 100 people immediately cupped their hands and said, "Greetings, branch leader." The Heavenly Sin branch leader nodded and asked a skinny old man in his 60s with a funny goatee, "Ghost Hand King, have you taken care of the Lu, Chao, and Yen families?" The Ghost Hand King nodded and said, "Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive." The Heavenly Sin branch leader nodded and pointed at Chu Xiu beside him. "I've taken care of the remaining members of the three families. This is Chu Xiu, who I just recruited into the branch. I'll leave him in your care. Let him rest for a while and tell him the rules. Then, give him a mission to determine his rank." With that, the Heavenly Sin branch leader turned around and left. After the Heavenly Sin branch leader left, the rest of the people only looked at Chu Xiu for a bit before leaving. They either went to carry out their mission, practiced on the practice field, or returned to their houses to cultivate. If it were any other place, a person personally recruited by a branch leader would naturally attract a lot of attention. However, this was the Heavenly Sin branch. This was because 80% of the people present were personally recruited by the Heavenly Sin branch leader into the Blue Dragon Society. As a newcomer, Chu Xiu behaved very humbly. He cupped his hands towards the Ghost Hand King and said, "Greetings, senior." The Ghost Hand King was older than him and also had the strength of an inner aura realm martial artist. Most importantly, Chu Xiu could feel a trace of pressure from him. They were both in the inner aura realm, but among all the inner aura realm martial artists that Chu Xiu had seen, the Ghost Hand King's strength could be said to be the strongest. The Ghost Hand King looked at Chu Xiu with a hint of interest in his eyes. "Chu Xiu? That Chu Xiu who is wanted by the Righteous Manor? TSK, he's not simple. To be wanted by the Righteous Manor and being chased by so many martial artists in the Linzhong region and still be able to live until now, he's not an ordinary person." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Being chased by others is nothing to brag about. Moreover, this time, if it wasn't for the branch leader, I might have been forced into a dead end." The Ghost Hand King waved his hand and said, "There's no need to say more. If you're capable, then you're capable. Although our Heavenly Sin branch is currently lacking people, the branch leader won't bring in all the weaklings. Otherwise, if we lose face for the Blue Dragon Society, it won't look good for the branch leader when the higher-ups blame us. Since this is your first time in the branch, you don't have to accept any missions for now. Let me first tell you about our Blue Dragon Society, or rather, the Heavenly Sin Branch's rules and things to pay attention to. Chapter 86. Assassins did not necessarily have to be extremely cold and ferocious. At the very least, the ghostly Hand King standing in front of Chu Xiu had a smile on his face most of the time. He looked a little comical and gave people a feeling that he was very harmless. However, Chu Xiu knew that when he was killing people, he would definitely have this smile on his face. Ghost Hand King gave Chu Xiu a detailed explanation of the rules of the Azure Dragon Society, as well as some of the rules of the Sin Division. In fact, Chu Xiu already knew a lot about it from the storyline of his previous life. It was just that Ghost Hand King was telling him more details. Although the Blue Dragon Society was an assassin organization, they were both good and evil. To put it simply, the Blue Dragon Society would kill people from the righteous path or the evil path. In any case, as long as you could pay the price, the Blue Dragon Society would dare to kill anyone. Actually, the most interesting thing was the rules of the Blue Dragon Society. Ordinary assassin organizations would first investigate the strength of the person they wanted to kill. Then, they would ask for a price based on the strength of the person. However, the Blue Dragon Society did the opposite. The Blue Dragon Society didn't set a price for killing people. It was up to the employer. However much the employer paid, the Blue Dragon Society would send the assassin to kill the target. If it was successful, then it was successful. If it failed and the Blue Dragon Society people were killed, then the Blue Dragon Society wouldn't take revenge on the killer. Instead, they would take revenge on the employer. From the perspective of the Blue Dragon Society, it was because the employer didn't investigate the strength of the person they killed. Either that, or the employer didn't pay the price, causing the assassin sent by the Blue Dragon Society to be killed. Therefore, the target of revenge by the Blue Dragon Society wasn't the killer, but the employer. It was because of this rule that people who hired the Blue Dragon Society to kill people were very cautious. They would investigate the strength of the other party and prepare more resources than usual. Only then would they dare to hire the Blue Dragon Society to kill people. Otherwise, if they didn't kill the person, it was very likely that they would be killed. In Chu Xiu's opinion, this was quite clever. The person who had set this rule in the past was simply a genius. Normal assassin organizations would have to negotiate with their employers, and some would even complain that it was too expensive. However, the Blue Dragon Society was different. Those employers were afraid that if they didn't take enough money, the assassins that the Blue Dragon Society sent out wouldn't be strong enough, and accidents would happen during the assassination. Therefore, they would try to take as much money as possible. In this way, the price of the assassins of the Blue Dragon Society was directly raised to the #1 position in the underworld. As for the reward for killing someone, most of the time, the Blue Dragon Society headquarters took 30%, the assassins took 50%, and the leader took 20%. However, because the Blue Dragon Society was spread throughout the entire pugilistic world, the situation was different, and the authority in the hands of the leaders was also different. Thus, in some places the Blue Dragon Society's headquarters would get quite a bit, but the assassins would get less, while the leaders would get more. Of course, the Heavenly Sin Branch still strictly followed the rules of the Blue Dragon Society. Originally, the Heavenly Sin Branch had very few people, so the leader of the Heavenly Sin Branch naturally had to win over the assassins under him. After introducing the rules of the Blue Dragon Society, the Ghost Hand King told Chu Xiu about the origin of the Heavenly Sin Branch. The entire Heavenly Sin Branch only had around 100 people, which was a little too shabby. Other than the leader of the Heavenly Sin Branch, who was an expert in the one with the Heaven's realm, the strongest of the others were only in the physical invulnerability realm. In fact, the original Heavenly Sin Branch was very strong. There were thousands of people, and there were also many experts in the 3-flower realm and the 5-chi realm. However, it was a pity that 3 years ago, the Heavenly Sin Branch was forcibly annihilated. Almost all the assassins in the branch were killed. That was why the headquarters of the Blue Dragon Society sent the leader of the Heavenly Sin Branch here and asked him to rebuild the Heavenly Sin Branch. The Ghost Hand King was an old member of the Heavenly Sin Branch. When the Heavenly Sin branch was annihilated, he was outside on a mission and escaped the disaster. As for who killed the Heavenly Sin branch, the Ghost Hand King didn't know. He had a vague guess, but he didn't dare to say it. In fact, even if he didn't say it, Chu Xiu could more or less guess it. Even if the Blue Dragon Society was only a branch, it wasn't weak. To be able to annihilate a branch of the Blue Dragon Society, other than the Northern Yan Dynasty, it would be the Mortuary Manor, the Northern Snowfall City, and other top forces in the pugilistic world. After roughly explaining these things, the Ghost Hand King said, "Actually, the rules of the Heavenly Sin branch are even simpler. You only need to know one thing, and that is to absolutely obey the leader's orders. As long as you remember this, everything else will be easy." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly and nodded. He only knew that this Heavenly Sin branch leader wasn't someone who would settle down in the original plot. Now that he looked at it, the other party's desire for control was also very strong. The Ghost Hand King continued, "Within the branch, everyone can call each other by name. However, when we go out on missions, not many people are willing to reveal their real names. So, we all have a code name for each other, so it's convenient to communicate with each other when carrying out missions. Of course, not everyone has a code name. The assassins of the Blue Dragon Society have a total of 9 levels. The highest level of mission you have completed is the highest level of assassin you are. For a branch like ours, normally a level 7 mission is the highest we can go. We can't complete any higher. Level 1, 2, and 3 assassins don't have code names, only numbers. Only those who have completed level 4 missions are qualified to have a code name, and they can draw a picture on their mask." The Ghost Hand King took out the mask on his waist and waved it in front of Chu Xiu. There was a picture of a clown drawn on it. "My code name is the Ghost Hand King. As for my real name, it's no longer important. After being called Ghost Hand King for more than 10 years, even I have forgotten what my real name is." As he spoke, the Ghost Hand King pointed at a handsome but expressionless young man with a heavy sword on his back. He said, "This person is the Cruel Sword, Yan Bugui. He is in the Qi-controlling physical invulnerability stage and is one of the strongest assassins in the Heavenly Sin branch. This guy usually likes to stand in a corner and stare blankly. However, once he makes a move, the scene of him killing people can make people vomit. Anyway, this guy has a psychological problem, so don't provoke him." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. To be able to join the Blue Dragon Society as an assassin, how many of them didn't have psychological problems? As he spoke, the Ghost Hand King pointed at a young martial artist meditating in the middle of the training field. There was a strange golden pattern on his mask and he said, "This is Tangya. His name is Tangya, and his code name is also Tangya. Anyway, he's a weirdo. In the entire branch, apart from the branch leader, no one knows where he came from. He is also in the Qi-controlling physical invulnerability stage. In the entire Green Dragon Society, there were only 2 physical invulnerability realm martial artists. Including the Ghost Hand King, there were 3 inner invulnerability realm martial artists. The other 2 were the Wolf King, who had a wolf's head painted on his mask, and the Fire Slave, who obviously didn't look like someone from the Central Plains. He seemed to be from the West regions, and his mask was painted with fire patterns. 2 physical invulnerability stage and 3 inner invulnerability stage. This kind of strength was already very strong in Linzhong Commandery. It was even stronger than the Yu family of Bailing that had been chasing after him previously. However, it was a pity that in a branch of the Blue Dragon Society, this was a little shabby. After introducing the general situation to Chu Xiu, the Ghost Hand King said to Chu Xiu, "After joining my Blue Dragon Society, there are still some greeting gifts. The Blue Dragon Society headquarters refined Azure Dragon spiritual pills that are 6 transformations. With your current strength, you can get 2 of them. Also, I will send the clothes and masks of my Blue Dragon Society to your house later. After you rest for a few days, come back to accept the mission and confirm your assassin rank." Speaking up to this point, the Ghost Hand King looked deeply at Chu Xiu and said, "If I'm not wrong, you should only be 1 step away from the inner invulnerability stage. To be able to step into the inner invulnerability stage at such a young age, You can even be stronger than most of the young talents on the Longhu list. Hearing the Ghost Hand King's words, Chu Xiu immediately understood what the other party meant. The Ghost Hand King's attitude towards Chu Xiu was indeed not bad. However, the person in front of him was a veteran assassin who had been in the Blue Dragon Society for more than 10 years. He had killed countless people in his lifetime. If he was really as amiable as he was now, he would have been killed long ago in the middle of a mission. Right now, his attitude towards Chu Xiu was so gentle and his explanation was so detailed. In fact, there was only one reason, and that was because of Chu Xiu's strength. Although the Heavenly Sin branch of the Blue Dragon Society was small, it was clearly divided into two groups. Obviously, those martial artists who hadn't stepped into the inner invulnerability stage and didn't have a code name were one group. As for the Ghost Hand King and the other assassins who had code names, they were another group. Dragons didn't make friends with snakes. Before their strength reached the level of the Ghost Hand King and the others, they had no interest in accepting these people. However, Chu Xiu was different. In the outside world, Chu Xiu already had a great reputation. Moreover, his strength had already reached the peak of the innate realm and was about to break through. When Chu Xiu reached the inner invulnerability stage, he would be in existence at the same level as them. Befriending Chu Xiu now was the same as befriending one's future companions. After understanding the Ghost Hand King's thoughts, Chu Xiu didn't feel anything against it. On the contrary, he felt that this kind of thing was very normal. What kind of strength, what kind of treatment? Wanting others to look at you differently without strength, this kind of protagonist treatment was something that Chu Xiu didn't think he would have. Chapter 87. The Ghost Hand King handed the elixir and Chu Xiu's clothes to Chu Xiu and left. Chu Xiu took the 2 Azure Dragon Spirit pills and looked at them. He didn't see anything special about them. However, the power of the elixir was definitely stronger than an unrefined elixir. Last time, a 6th Revolution Purple Leaf Dogwood caused the 4 forces of the Cold River Prefecture to fight. It could be said that even Chu Xiu was attracted by the Purple Leaf Dogwood, so he specifically intervened in this matter. A 6th Revolution elixir caused the blood of several Xiantian realm warriors to spill on the spot. But now, Chu Xiu used his cultivation that was close to the inner aura realm to exchange for 2 6th Revolution elixirs. This was the foundation of a big force. Moreover, as an assassin of the Blue Dragon Society, you could also accumulate the rewards you earned and then go to the headquarters of the Blue Dragon Society to exchange them for cultivation resources or even cultivation techniques. Chu Xiu joining the Blue Dragon Society was actually half forced, but as for the others, some of them even wished for it. For some people who were born cruel and merciless, they would kill people anyway. In some places, they would be chased after killing people, but in the Blue Dragon Society, killing people could also be exchanged for benefits, so why not? Putting aside the thoughts in his mind, Chu Xiu directly took the 2 Azure Dragon Spirit pills and began to break through to the inner aura realm. With the glazed golden thread goo, Chu Xiu didn't need to worry about his injuries and refining the elixir. He only needed to focus on breaking through to the next realm. It had to be said that the glazed golden thread goo was really worthy of its name as a treasure. Although it wouldn't let you soar to the sky directly, it would provide a shortcut on your road to the sky, allowing you to fly faster and more effortlessly. The 3 Xiantian realms of body refinement and the 5th level of Qi controlling realm. When one reached the 5th level of Qi controlling realm, the foundation was more important than when one was in the Xiantian realm. It was just that Chu Xiu had never seen an internal aura realm martial artist that was too strong. Most of the internal aura realm martial artists were indeed very strong, but they were not strong enough to make Chu Xiu, who was in the innate realm, despair. Of course, this was normal, because the 2 realms of inner aura realm and physical invulnerability realm had the biggest gap between the same level. Of course, this was normal, because the inner aura realm and physical invulnerability realm were the 2 realms. Without a good foundation or a poor cultivation method, some of the weaker physical invulnerability realm martial artists could only release their gang qi a few inches outwards. Their power was limited. As for the stronger martial artists of the physical invulnerability realm, It was possible for them to unleash a sword aura of a few feet or even tens of feet. All of this depended on the strength of one's genuine qi and control over one's gang qi. Internal aura shield was the first step of the 5th tier of qi controlling. It was also the first step to condense aura shield and control the qi within one's body. After taking the Azure Dragon Spirit Pill, the pill's energy was continuously absorbed into Chu Xiu's body and the glass gold thread goo. Then, the glass gold thread goo began to feed Chu Xiu's energy, transforming the qi into strands of sharp astral qi that swam in Chu Xiu's meridians. At this moment, in Chu Xiu's mind, all the meridians in his body had been revealed to him as the gang qi flowed. It was abnormally clear. This feeling was very magical. There was only one feeling that Chu Xiu had when he entered the inner strong state, and that was control. Using stellar energy to control his entire body was the power of qi, and also Chu Xiu's own power. Stretching out his hand, Chu Xiu condensed his stellar energy in his hand, causing it to emit a faint glow. Putting his hand deep into the ground, Chu Xiu's hand sank into the marble floor in an instant, like stabbing tofu. This was the power brought about by the inner strong state, and it was also the most intuitive power of stellar energy. In the past, when Chu Xiu fought with Su Chongyang came in from the outside and deliberately made a show of force, condensing stellar energy in his legs. Every step he took had the weight of 1,000 pounds, and the ground shattered inch by inch. This was one of the simplest ways to use stellar energy. At that time, Chu Xiu felt it was a little magical when he saw that scene. But now, if Chu Xiu wanted to create that scene, it would be a piece of cake. After all, the Xiantian skill that Chu Xiu cultivated was much stronger than Su Chongyang's inner strength. Chu Xiu still wanted to condense stellar energy outside his body, but his stellar energy was still too weak and could not be condensed at all. Just being able to attach it to the surface of his body was already the best he could do. It's going to take time. From the inner strong state to the physical invulnerability, this stage not only took time, but also consumed all kinds of cultivation resources. Step by step, the stellar energy was condensed to an incomparably strong level. Only then could one truly release the stellar energy and step into the physical invulnerability. However, for the current Chu Xiu, he was already one step ahead of others. Because of the glazed golden thread goo, Chu Xiu only took less than a day to step into the inner aura realm. For the remaining time, Chu Xiu was not in a hurry to come out of seclusion. Instead, he cultivated the Heavens Exterminating Earth Exterminating Soul Shifting Technique and the Heavens Exterminating Earth Exterminating Great Purple Sun Hand. The situation was similar to what Chu Xiu had guessed. With the power of the glazed golden thread goo and the enhancement of the mental strength brought by the Heaven Extinguishing Earth Extinguishing Soul Shifting Technique, he could indeed temporarily suppress the backlash of the Avicii Dao's 3 blades. However, this was only the first blade, and it was used in a state where there was no one around. When Chu Xiu really fought with someone, it was still unknown what would happen. When Chu Xiu came out of seclusion, the Ghost Hand King happened to be here. To be precise, the Ghost Hand King had not left. He was in charge of handling some miscellaneous things in the Heavenly Sin branch. He did not participate in most of the individual missions and only participated in group missions. Seeing that Chu Xiu had come out of seclusion and had successfully broken through to the inner strong state, the Ghost Hand King smiled and said, "I knew it. With your previous strength, it would not be difficult to smoothly advance to the inner strong state. Now you can take on a mission. After you complete it, it will be your assassin level." There was a stone tablet in the middle of the underground palace's training field. From the bottom to the top, it was filled with paper. The paper was filled with the contents of the mission, the employer's reward, and so on. Assassins who wanted to take on a mission could directly take the paper from the stone tablet and contact the employer according to the contact information on it. At the moment, there weren't that many assassins from the Azure Dragon Society in the necropolis. There were only about 50 of them, and when they saw Chu Xiu coming out of seclusion, they couldn't help but look at him curiously. Some of them were impressed by his young age, some were provoked, but most of them didn't care. Excluding the Ghost Hand King, there were only 2 assassins who were above the innate realm. One was the strongest assassin that the Ghost Hand King had evaluated as cruel sword, Yan Buge. However, although he was looking at Chu Xiu, his eyes were still emotionless and very stiff. The other one was Fire Slave. Fire Slave looked like someone from the western region. He had brown hair, blue eyes, and a high nose bridge. He always had a faint smile on his face. The Ghost Hand King had told Chu Xiu his name before. A long string of pronunciations in the western region language made Chu Xiu's head spin. Anyway, in the Blue Dragon Society, it was fine to just call him by his codename. Seeing that Chu Xiu was about to choose a mission, Fire Slave walked over with a smile on his face. Brother Chu Xiu, I'm the most experienced in choosing a promotion mission. Just give me a simple one. The killing methods of the Blue Dragon Society are different from those of the outside world. It will take some time to get used to it. As for the assassin's rank, it doesn't matter. At worst, I'll just earn less money in the first few months. Living is the most important thing. Why do I have to sacrifice my life for money? This Fire Slave's accent was very strange. Although it was Central Plains Chinese, it was different from the Northern Yan accent. It was probably a Western region accent mixed in. However, his point of view also made Chu Xiu a little surprised. An assassin who often fought on the line between life and death actually told him that staying alive was the most important thing, and that money was secondary. This was a little novel. The Ghost Hand King waved his hand and said, "Don't cause trouble here. There are so many assassins in the Blue Dragon Society, and it took you 3 times to complete the ranking mission. You could have easily finished it, but you just had to drag it out. You even dragged it out until the Branch Lord was getting impatient. Aren't you being cheap?" Fire Slave said with dissatisfaction, "I wasn't dragging it out. I had to find a 100% success rate without any accidents before I made my move. In the entire Heavenly Sin branch, who can be more stable than me? I have a 100% completion rate, even higher than that guy Yan Bugue." The Ghost Hand King coldly snorted and said, "But the number of times you completed the mission is the least." After bickering with the Fire Slave for a while, the Ghost Hand King looked at Chu Xiu and said, "Brother Chu, the missions are all here. They range from level 1 to level 5. Missions that are level 5 and above either require multiple people or the opponents are too strong. We can only leave it to the branch leader to handle." Although Fire Slave isn't reliable, what he said is also reasonable. You don't have to be too anxious about the ranking mission. You can choose a simple mission for now. For example, the strongest target for a level 3 mission is the Xiantian realm. With your strength, you can deal with several people at the same time. I suggest you consider it. Chapter 88. Looking at the missions posted on the stone tablet, Chu Xiu was also thinking about how he should behave in front of others in the Blue Dragon Society. Chu Xiu joined the Blue Dragon Society under coercion, and he didn't plan to be a shady killer for the rest of his life. Therefore, according to Chu Xiu's previous thinking, he should keep a low profile. However, after hearing about the various benefits in the Blue Dragon Society, Chu Xiu changed his mind. Even if he had to leave sooner or later, he had to reap enough benefits before leaving. Advancing from the inner invulnerability realm to the outer invulnerability realm was a painstaking process. What Chu Xiu needed wasn't time, but a large amount of cultivation resources. Carrying out missions, then exchanging the rewards of these missions for cultivation resources, allowing his strength to improve, and then carrying out more powerful missions. This was the path that Chu Xiu should choose. Moreover, feeling the slightly provocative eyes behind him, as well as the slightly judgmental eyes of the Fire Slave, Chu Xiu also understood what kind of place he was in. Assassin organizations didn't have that many schemes. What everyone valued was actually only one word: strength. For example, Yan Bugue, who was standing in the corner without saying a word. Everyone looked at Yan Bugue with awe. If Chu Xiu wanted to temporarily establish a foothold in the Blue Dragon Society division, he could only rely on strength. Looking at the mission papers on the stone tablet, Chu Xiu looked through them one by one. Missions below level 4 were all prepared for warriors below the inner invulnerability realm. Although Chu Xiu was 100% sure that he could complete them, he didn't even look at them. Level 4 missions also had different levels. Naturally, the difficulty of killing one inner invulnerability realm was different from killing a group of inner invulnerability realm warriors. Even missions with more than 10 inner invulnerability realm warriors could be classified as level 5 missions. Chu Xiu took a few glances at the level 4 quests, but none of them satisfied him. However, at that moment, Chu Xiu suddenly noticed a familiar name on the list of a level 5 quest, the Yu clan of the Biling. Chu Xiu had already started a feud with the Yu clan of the Northern Mountain when he was at Luyang Mountain. Later on, when Chu Xiu had snatched the secret box from Yu Luchuan, the Yu clan was also the one who had chased after Chu Xiu the most ferociously. The feud between the two parties had long been irreconcilable. It could be said that Chu Xiu of the Yu clan would have to deal with them sooner or later. Now that there was a quest, wouldn't it be killing two birds with one stone? Hence, Chu Xiu did not hesitate and immediately removed the Yu clan's mission list. Seeing that Chu Xiu had actually chosen a level 5 quest, the crowd immediately went into an uproar. Even Yen Bugei, who had been silent all this while, stared deeply at Chu Xiu. A level 5 quest would involve more than 10 inner aura realm warriors or 1 outer aura realm warrior. This Chu Xiu had just stepped into the inner aura realm and he chose this level of quest. Was he looking for death? Fire Slave looked at Chu Xiu strangely and said, "Brother Chu, are you kidding me?" Ghost Hand King also shook his head and said, "Brother Chu, I advise you to be more cautious." Just like what Fire Slave said just now, a level 5 quest is not a big deal. You have the strength of an inner aura realm warrior, so it won't affect your position in the branch. But a level 5 quest is not a joke. You must know that the Yu clan's elder is an outer aura realm expert. Although there are not 10 inner aura realm warriors in the entire Yu clan, there are at least 7 or 8 of them. This kind of strength is considered to be one of the more difficult level 5 quests. Usually only Yen Bugui, Tangya, or a group of people would choose this kind of quest. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Thank you for the reminder, but I still want to choose this quest." Ghost Hand King looked at the quest list and suddenly frowned. "Brother Chu, you can choose a level 5 quest, but I advise you to change it. This quest is a little special. The employer's salary is not enough to hire a level 5 assassin. At most, it would be a level 4, but the target of the quest is a level 5. The employer knows the rules of the Blue Dragon Society. If the quest fails, the employer will also be retaliated by the Blue Dragon Society. But the other party still insists on doing this. It's obvious that they want to perish together with the other party, or they want to use all their strength to kill the other party. The client wanted to take the other party down with him, but the assassins of the Azure Dragon Society didn't want to throw their lives away. That's why this mission has been hanging here for a few days now. Tangya and Yen Bugui have no intention of accepting it. I was just about to tell the leader about this and cancel the mission list." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. His main goal was to take action against the Yu clan of the Biling Mountain. The quest was just a side effect, so Chu Xiu directly said, "There's no need to change it, I'll choose this." Hearing Chu Xiu say this, Ghost Hand King didn't say anything. He only lightly shook his head. Since Chu Xiu wanted to die, he naturally wouldn't stop him. The Blue Dragon Society wasn't a charity. Unfortunately, it wasn't easy for leader to find a suitable warrior to join the Blue Dragon Society. The warrior's strength wasn't bad, but his brain wasn't clear. Fire Slave just laughed a few times in confusion. He didn't even say goodbye and directly turned around to leave. He actually wanted to make friends with Chu Xiu. In other Blue Dragon Society branches, the assassins might have conflicts because of snatching quests, but in the Heavenly Sin branch, this kind of thing didn't exist at all. Because there were so many quests that everyone couldn't even pick one. So the few warriors in the Heavenly Sin branch who were above inner invulnerability had a good relationship with each other. Everyone was familiar with each other, and they could cooperate better when carrying out group quests. Maybe one of them could save you at a critical moment. But now, in the eyes of Fire Slave, Chu Xiu's behavior was arrogant and conceited. He thought that just because he snatched something from Ye Donglu and Bai Wuji, he could really be compared to those elites on the Longhu list? What a joke! In the past, Nie Donglu had destroyed the 18 Black Cloud villages which had thousands of people, but he only succeeded because he befriended hundreds of young elites in the pugilistic world. Now, Chu Xiu wanted to destroy the Yu family of Bailing alone? What right did he have? The other assassins who didn't have a code name looked like they were watching a good show. They were all born in the wilderness, and they didn't think they were worse than Chu Xiu. Even if they hadn't reached inner invulnerability yet, they would sooner or later. They were just a little jealous that Chu Xiu had joined the Blue Dragon Society as an innate stage, but he was accepted and treated politely by the Ghost Hand King and the others. Seeing that Chu Xiu had made up his mind, the Ghost Hand King didn't stop him anymore. He just said, "If that's the case, then I wish you success in your mission, Brother Chu. The contact place of the employer is on the mission list. You can discuss the specific information with the employer yourself. By the way, when you kill someone, if you want, you can also leave the mark of the Blue Dragon Society or your own mark. An assassin also needs a reputation. The more famous you are, the higher the chances of an employer asking you to take action in the future." Of course, although the Ghost Hand King said that, he still didn't think that it was possible for Chu Xiu to destroy the Yu family of Bailing. The Blue Dragon Society didn't have a rule where one would be killed if they didn't complete the mission, but the Blue Dragon Society never kept useless people. No one wanted to experience the consequences of a low mission completion rate. Moreover, the danger of this mission wasn't small. Chu Xiu nodded and put away the mission list without saying anything. In a place like the Blue Dragon Society, everything was decided by strength. Since Chu Xiu wanted to borrow the power of the Green Dragon to cultivate, he first had to show absolute strength, a strength that would make everyone look at him in a different light. The Blue Dragon Society had a special method to contact the employer. The contact method was already written on the mission list. As long as Chu Xiu left a mark in a small town in Daishan County, the employer would see it. Chu Xiu left a mark in the small town and pointed out that he was in a broken temple on a barren mountain outside of the town. He waited for the employer to arrive. He also wanted to see who the Yu family of Bailing had offended this time to be killed by an assassin. Staying in the broken temple, Chu Xiu was bored, so he studied the mask and the iron bamboo hat on his face. The conical bamboo hat and mask with the insignia of the Azure Dragon Society weren't just used to conceal one's identity. Chu Xiu also discovered something interesting. The mask and the conical bamboo hat were actually forged from some kind of meteoric iron and some other materials. Although there were no arrays on the mask and the iron bamboo hat, wearing the mask and the iron bamboo hat could block the opponent's perception to a certain extent and increase one's concealment. For an assassin, this was undoubtedly a good treasure. At this moment, there was a movement outside the broken temple. The old door was pushed open, and a woman walked in. Chapter 89. The one who appeared in front of Chu Xiu was a beautiful, but very strange woman. The woman in front of him looked to be in her 20s. She was extremely beautiful and wore a purple dress. Her hair was wet from the fog in the forest and stuck to her pale and sickly face. She gave off a feeling of exhaustion, as if she would collapse at any moment. What attracted the most attention were her eyes. Although her body seemed to be extremely exhausted, her eyes seemed to be burning with flames. It was the wrath of extreme hatred. Even Chu Xiu couldn't help but be surprised by the astonishing hatred. "Are you the killer sent by the Blue Dragon Society?" The woman opened her mouth. Her voice was very hoarse, and it seemed a little awkward compared to her beautiful appearance. At the same time, there was no expression on her face. Chu Xiu could only see the hatred in the woman's eyes. It was an almost endless hatred. Slowly tidying up the mask and iron hat on his face, Chu Xiu said indifferently, "That's me." The woman laughed bitterly, lowered her head and muttered, "My commission is still not enough. The Blue Dragon Society only sent an inner aura realm warrior, but an inner aura realm warrior can't kill a few people from the Yu clan." Chu Xiu knocked on the conical bamboo hat on her head and said indifferently, "Whether or not I can exterminate the Yu clan is my problem. Since I have accepted your mission, I naturally have a way to complete it. So, what you need to do now is to hand over all the information about the Yu clan to me. Of course, I'm also a little curious about the enmity between you and the Yu clan. However, it's fine if you don't want to say it. The Blue Dragon Society doesn't have the habit of inquiring about their employer's privacy. I'm just curious. The woman lowered her head and said indifferently, "This is no longer a private matter. As long as you go to the Biling mansion and ask around, many people know about me. It's fine to tell you." Saying that, the woman told Chu Xiu everything about her and the Yu clan. This woman was Mu Zi, the young lady of the Mu clan of Biling Prefecture. She was also Yu Luchuan's fiancée. Both of them were already at the stage where they were going to hold an engagement banquet. The Yu clan of the Biling Prefecture was the overlord of the entire Biling Prefecture. In fact, they were one of the few greatest forces in the entire Linzhong County. Although the Mu clan was slightly weaker than the Yu clan, they were not too weak either. Both clans were in the northern mountain manor. They would either fight against each other or work together. It was that simple. Hence, in the end, after the Yu clan and Mu clan's discussion, both sides decided to unite by marriage. This way, they could avoid unnecessary conflicts and increase the strength of both clans. Originally, this kind of marriage was very normal in the Jianghu. Yu Luchuan was the Yu clan's first wife's son. Although he did not enter the Longhu leaderboard, he still had the strength of an innate rancor, which was not bad. Moreover, this Mu Zi was extremely beautiful. Forget about the Biling Prefecture, even in the entire Linzhong County, there were few people who could compare to her. Moreover, Mu Zi was quite talented as well. She had already reached the innate rancor, so the two of them were suitable for each other. However, the problem arose not long ago, when Yu Luchuan traveled to the south of Yan Kingdom. Chu Xiu had seen Yu Luchuan's appearance before. Although this brat was a little useless, he was very handsome. Calling him a gigolo would be an insult to him. After traveling around the south of Yan Kingdom, Yu Luchuan actually hooked up with the daughter of one of the 7 sects and 8 schools, the divine martial sect leader of the south of Yan Kingdom, Yan Huainan. One was the daughter of the divine martial sect leader of one of the 7 sects and 8 schools, while the other was the daughter of the Mu clan, a small clan in the Biling Prefecture. There was no need to think about who to choose between these two. Originally, if the Yu clan only wanted to curry favor with the divine martial sect, they could just break off the engagement with the Mu clan. At most, their reputation would be tarnished. However, who would have thought that the Yu clan would be so cruel and merciless? In order to protect their reputation, and also because they coveted the Mu clan's properties, they casually framed the Mu clan with a crime. Before the Mu clan could even react, the Yu clan had already been annihilated. Mu Zi's eyes shone with hatred, but there was no expression on her face. Even the tone of her voice did not change at all. I don't blame Yu Luchuan for wanting to curry favor with the divine martial sect. If he wanted to break off the engagement, so be it. There were no feelings between us in the first place. The Yu clan was powerful, and the Mu clan did not dare to say anything after that. But why did the Yu clan want to annihilate the Mu clan in the end? I will never forget that day. The Yu clan used the excuse of discussing the engagement to sneak into the Mu clan and launched a sneak attack. In the blink of an eye, the Mu clan had already turned into a river of blood. If it wasn't for the Mu clan's old housekeeper, Uncle Su, who risked his life to bring me away, I would have died there too. Of course, the current me is no different from a dead person. A few days ago, Uncle Su had already died from his severe injuries. Before he died, he told me a few of the Mu clan's properties and treasures, in case of emergencies. Uncle Su asked me to leave Linzhong County, leave northern Yan, and change to another place to live. As she spoke till here, Mu Zi's eyes were already bloodshot, but I won't be satisfied until I see the Yu clan's people die. When Chu Xiu heard this, he raised his eyebrows. The Yu clan was really ruthless. They were still discussing the marriage, but in the blink of an eye, they had already annihilated the entire clan. Of course, from Chu Xiu's point of view, the Yu clan was still a little too petty. This way, they could indeed maximize their benefits, but in the end, they would lose their reputation. Don't treat the people of the pugilistic world as idiots. Anyone with a discerning eye would be able to tell what was going on with the Mu clan. The Yu clan's table manners were a little too ugly. They had just hooked up with the divine martial sect, but in the blink of an eye, they had already annihilated their soon-to-be in-laws. This kind of thing was not good to hear. At the very least, the other forces in the Bailing prefecture definitely did not have a good impression of the Yu clan. When they worked with the Yu clan again, they would have to be very careful. Of course, the Yu clan themselves might not care about this. From their point of view, they had already successfully hooked up with the divine martial sect. Now that they had annihilated the Mu clan and seized the Mu clan's properties, their strength had increased greatly. Of course, they would not care about what other people thought of them. Chu Xiu flicked the bamboo hat on his head and said, "Your entire clan is dead? Don't worry, you'll see it. Moreover, the Yu clan will feel that some things are scarier than death. By the way, give me all the information about the Yu clan. Since you hate the Yu clan so much, I believe you should have a lot of detailed information about the Yu clan." Mu Zi handed over the information about the Yu clan to Chu Xiu. It was indeed very detailed, so detailed that it made one's hair stand on end. Even the information and personalities of some of the Yu clan's collateral disciples were included. There was also detailed information about the entire Bailing prefecture, the other forces within it, their relationship with the Yu clan, and so on. After the death of the only old servant who had protected him, only the heavens knew how Mu Zi had managed to gather all this information in detail. However, to Chu Xiu, this information would be of great help to him. It would make his plan more secure. Standing up, Chu Xiu walked out of the dilapidated temple and said indifferently without turning his head back, "You don't have to stay here for this period of time. You can hide around the Bailing prefecture. Within a month, I guarantee that you'll hear the news of the Yu clan being annihilated." Watching Chu Xiu's silhouette disappear, Mu Zi raised her head. The hatred in her eyes temporarily disappeared, replaced by a hint of confusion. She knew about the Yu clan's strength. But now, an internal Aura Realm warrior actually told her to annihilate the Yu clan within a month. Was such a thing really possible? However, this assassin from the Blue Dragon Society was her biggest hope. She had already found all the financial records of the Mu clan, but at most, she could only hire a level 4 assassin from the Blue Dragon Society. However, Mu Zi had already made up her mind. If the people from the Blue Dragon Society could not annihilate the Yu clan, she would do it herself. Even if she could not annihilate the Yu clan, she would still kill Yu Luchuan and perish together with him. The Bailing prefecture was located at the edge of the forest county. It was not part of the central region. The reason why the Bailing prefecture was called the Bailing prefecture was because it was originally a mountain. However, the mountain near the south side was too steep and buildings could not be built there. Therefore, people built a prefecture on the north side of the mountain and named it the Bailing prefecture. Because it was built on a mountain, the roads to the Bailing prefecture were not that convenient. There was only a mountain road in the north, while the south side was a cliff. Moreover, the mountain road was surrounded by dense forests. It was not much better than the small paths in Wei County's Shangshao Mountain. Logically speaking, with such a location, the Bailing prefecture should only be a small prefecture. It was not considered powerful, but in reality, the Bailing prefecture was very prosperous. The number of warriors there was more than that of an ordinary prefecture, and it was stronger than an ordinary prefecture. As for the reason, it was actually very simple. Although the Bailing prefecture was a mountain city and it was inconvenient to travel, the feng shui of the mountain was very good. The qi of heaven and earth was very rich, and it was very suitable for warriors to cultivate. It was not inferior to some famous mountains and rivers. The reason why the Yu clan could have their current strength was also because of the good location. This caused the Yu clan to become stronger with each generation. They had developed from a small clan that only had an innate rancor to a large clan that was famous in the forest county. When night fell, Chu Xiu was also dressed in black. As if he had blended into the night, he entered the Bailing prefecture. Chapter 90. Because of the divine martial sect, the Yu clan had successfully destroyed the Mu clan and seized the Mu clan's property. Now, the Yu clan could be said to be blessed with double happiness. Even though it was already midnight, the Yu clan mansion was still brightly lit and people were drinking and having fun. Chu Xiu stood on top of a tall building not far from the Yu clan mansion. Dressed in black, wearing a black conical bamboo hat and a black iron mask, Chu Xiu's entire figure seemed to have merged with the night. At this time, Chu Xiu had also discovered the benefits of the Blue Dragon Society's attire. The bamboo hat and mask had the effect of shielding one's senses. Adding on the fact that Chu Xiu was dressed in black, it was indeed very difficult to be discovered at night. Of course, if he was at the level of Heaven Sin branch leader, this so-called attire would only serve as a reminder of his identity. If he attacked in broad daylight, he could kill whoever he wanted. He just had to crush them with his strength. There was no need to distinguish between day and night. Looking at the Yu clan mansion, Chu Xiu was like a ghost, quietly sneaking in. At this time, in one of the Yu clan mansion's courtyards, two Yu clan blood condensation realm warriors carrying a pot of wine walked out unhurriedly. Looking in the direction of the mansion, one of them couldn't help but curl his lips and say, "Is it the first branch making trouble again? TSK, isn't it because Yu Luchuan climbed up to the divine martial sect leader's daughter? What are they so proud of? A big man relying on his own face to climb up to others, isn't it shameful?" The Yu clan warrior beside him shook his head and said, "Sixth brother, don't ever say this in front of others. Otherwise, our third branch will be out of luck." Among the Yu clan's 9 branches, although the first branch's name was the highest, they weren't strong and didn't have much power in the clan. This time, Yu Luchuan climbed up to the divine martial sect's young Mississippi. The other branches can't compete with them. Maybe in the future, the Yu clan will be controlled by the first branch. We should just tuck our tails between our legs for now. During this time, don't provoke the first branch. Let them be complacent in the Yu clan, let them be. Let's go and drink our wine. The Yu clan was now a famous aristocratic family in the entire forest prefecture. Furthermore, the Yu clan had been passed down for several generations in the northern mountain prefecture. After several generations of inheritance, the Yu clan was no longer as pure as before. The entire Yu clan was also divided into factions. Not counting the branch families, just the direct bloodline of the Yu clan could be divided into 9 branches. In the past, the 9 branches were not divided into big or small. The Yu clan's old ancestor would sit in the middle and everyone would take turns to control the power. However, now that Yu Luchuan had climbed up to the divine martial sect, the whole Yu clan's face was lit up. The so-called power taking turns seemed to be a joke. The first branch that Yu Luchuan was in was obviously preparing to monopolize the power. The warrior from before continued to grumble. However, after saying a few words, the people beside him did not respond. He subconsciously turned around, but there was not a single person beside him. This scene immediately made the warrior's hair stand on end. Just as he was about to say something, a hand covered his mouth, and a crimson blade directly pierced into his chest. Pulling out the red sleeve blade, Chu Xiu shook off the blood on the blade and moved the 2 corpses together. For the current Chu Xiu, not to mention the blood condensation realm warriors, even if it was an innate rancor, not many people would be able to withstand a single move from him. Moreover, after stepping into the inner supreme aura stage, Chu Xiu also discovered that he could perfectly control his aura and strength. When he first stepped into the innate rancor stage, Chu Xiu discovered that the aura on his body was a little too conspicuous. In the eyes of some experts, his sharp aura was like an unsheathed long sword. But now that he had reached the inner supreme aura stage, Chu Xiu could completely control the power of his true qi. He could restrain his aura, allowing him to be more hidden during assassination. Just like just now, he had already killed one person, but the other martial artist did not even realize it. Chu Xiu dipped his hand in the blood and drew an abstract dragon pattern next to the 2 corpses. It was the same golden dragon pattern on his iron bamboo hat. This was the symbol of the Blue Dragon Society. And this was not the end. Chu Xiu wrote the word Mu next to the dragon pattern. Just as he was about to leave, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something and left another bloody handprint on the ground. After doing all this, Chu Xiu left directly. Moreover, Chu Xiu did not stay in the Bailing Mansion at all. Instead, he went directly into the dense forest of Bailing Mountain. The next morning, when the servants of the Yu clan got up early to clean the courtyard, they they suddenly saw the corpses on the ground. They were so scared that they screamed in horror and quickly informed the others of the Yu clan. In an instant, the entire Yu clan was in an uproar. It was not that the Yu clan could not have people die. It was normal to be killed in the Jianghu, but the problem was that they were killed in their own clan. This was simply a slap to the Yu clan's face. Therefore, in less than a quarter of an hour, the Yu clan's elder, the physical invulnerability realm expert Yuhenian, and 8 inner supreme realm warriors of the Yu clan gathered here. Of the 9 branches of the Yu clan, 5 had inner supreme realm warriors. As for the other 3 inner supreme realm warriors, one was from a branch of the Yu clan, and the other 2 were the Yu clan's right-hand men. Actually, the Yu clan still had one more inner supreme realm warrior, but because he was killed by Chu Xiu when he was chasing after Chu Xiu, there were only 8 of them left. Seeing the corpses of the 2 warriors, the Yu clan's 3rd branch's head, Yu Dongxing, had a gloomy expression. This was because the 2 people who died were the clansmen of his 3rd branch. However, after seeing the marks left by Chu Xiu on the ground, the expressions of all the Yu clan's people changed abruptly. Blue Dragon Society. That blood-red dragon pattern was too familiar. They all knew the classic symbol of the Blue Dragon Society. And that blood-red mu word was even more glaring, as if the spirits of the dead who had died in the Battle of Annihilation had crawled out from the underworld to seek revenge. The 3rd branch's Yu Dongxing glanced at the 1st branch's Yu Donglin and said with a gloomy expression, "It was done by the Mu clan's surviving members. They actually invited people from the Blue Dragon Society." The ones who were responsible for annihilating the Mu clan were the Yu clan's 1st branch. The ones who took the lead were Yu Donglin and his son, Yu Luchuan. In the end, not only did they not kill all of them, they even came back for revenge. Naturally, the 1st branch had to take responsibility for this. Yu Donglin immediately waved his hand and said, "That's not right. The Mu clan's people are all dead. How could there still be surviving members?" Yu Dongxing sneered and said, "Big brother, did you forget that the Mu clan's girl's corpse has never been found? Don't forget, although the Mu clan's strength is not as good as our Yu clan, their history is not shorter than ours. Everyone knows that a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. If the Mu clan's girl had escaped, she could have used the things left behind by the Mu clan to invite the assassins of the Blue Dragon Society to kill her." Yu Donglin frowned and said, "That's not right either. You should know the rules of the Blue Dragon Society. Even if the Mu clan gave up all of their assets, the assassins they invited would not be able to destroy our Yu clan. With the things that the Mu clan left behind, they could only invite a level 4 assassin at most. Moreover, it's only one. How could they destroy our Yu clan?" Yu Dongxing glanced at Yu Luchuan and said, "Big brother, you seem to have forgotten something. This matter was proposed by your 1st branch from the start. You lied to the Mu clan, and the first to launch a sneak attack was also your 1st branch. If the Mu clan's girl invited an assassin from the Blue Dragon Society, who do you think she would want to kill the most? The other party might not be able to destroy our Yu clan, but a level 4 inner aura realm assassin could kill Yu Luchuan." Yesterday, Yu Luchuan was drinking and having fun in the main room, so the assassin couldn't find the target. Therefore, this time, our 3rd branch's people died blocking the arrow for your son. When he said this, Yu Luchuan's face immediately turned pale. The people from the other branches also looked at Yu Luchuan. Whether it was the marriage alliance with the divine martial sect or the destruction of the Mu clan, the ones who benefited the most were the 1st branch's people. At first, there were even people who opposed to the destruction of the Mu clan, but in the end, Yuhenian made the final decision. They didn't dare to say anything and could only do as he said. Just now, the reason why 3rd brother Yu Dongxing was so angry was not only because his 3rd branch's people were killed, but also because he wanted to strike a blow to the 1st branch's arrogance. Seeing that the disputes between these few branches were getting more intense, to the point that they were about to quarrel, Yuhenian coldly snorted and said, "All of you, shut up. What kind of storms have our Yu clan not seen before? How could an inner aura realm assassin from the Blue Dragon Society scare you to this extent? Have you forgotten the rules of the Blue Dragon Society? Don't be afraid. As long as we get rid of the assassin, the ones who will suffer the most are the Mu clan's descendants. When he said this, apart from Yu Luchuan's expression, the others didn't say anything. Just like what Yu Henian had said, although the Blue Dragon Society's assassins were strong, as long as you could block them and kill them, the Blue Dragon Society wouldn't bother you. Instead, they would take revenge on the employer. This was because the employer paid a low price and underestimated the target's strength, causing the Blue Dragon Society's assassins to be injured. As long as the Yu clan survived this time and didn't let Yu Luchuan be killed, they wouldn't need to care about the Mu clan's descendants. The Blue Dragon Society would take care of them. Most people knew the rules of the Blue Dragon Society. Therefore, unless it was a kind of irreconcilable hatred, very few people would ask the Blue Dragon Society for help. This was because the Blue Dragon Society was a double-edged sword. If they couldn't kill others, they would have to kill themselves. At this time, a Yu clan's disciple suddenly asked doubtfully, "What does that bloody handprint mean?" The Yu clan's eldest brother glanced at it and said casually, "The Blue Dragon Society's assassins have their own code names. That bloody handprint should be the assassin's code name. I've never heard of any assassins in the Blue Dragon Society using a bloody handprint as their code name. I reckon that the other party is a nobody in the Blue Dragon Society. Don't worry about him, search with all your might. At the same time, strengthen the security at night." Chapter 91. The news of the Yu clan's deaths did not spread out. After all, they were only 2 blood condensation realm warriors. Moreover, this matter was related to the Blue Dragon Society and the Mu clan. There were some inside stories that could not be easily revealed. Hence, the Yu clan hid it and sent their own disciples to search for traces of strangers in the Biling mansion. Unfortunately, they found nothing. After nightfall, the Yu clan had learned their lesson this time. They strengthened their security and sent people to patrol the area. However, Chu Xiu still killed one of their men. Moreover, the one who died this time was an innate rancor. With Chu Xiu's current strength, killing an innate rancor in one move was not difficult. However, the Yu clan could not accept such a result. 3 people died consecutively. On the 3rd day, Yu Henian ordered the number of people patrolling at night to be increased by several times. There were people in almost every courtyard. They also sent 2 internal strength realm warriors to participate in the patrol. Once again, Chu Xiu arrived at the Yu clan mansion. Looking at the brightly lit Yu clan mansion, Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. The Yu clan did not seem to have any good methods. Did they only increase the number of people? This kind of unskilled method was useless to Chu Xiu. One person exterminating an entire clan. This kind of thing was exaggerated in everyone's eyes, including the assassins of the Blue Dragon Society. However, since Chu Xiu accepted this task, he had a certain degree of confidence. Chu Xiu would never do something that would seek death. At this time, not only were there warriors patrolling inside the Yu clan mansion, there were even some Yu clan warriors appearing outside the Yu clan mansion from time to time with lanterns in their hands. They were also in groups of 3, afraid that someone would ambush them. At the corner of the alley, 3 blood condensation realm warriors of the Yu clan were patrolling outside nervously. 2 people died on the 1st day, 1 died on the 2nd day. God knows who would die on the 3rd day. Right at this moment, Chu Xiu suddenly appeared in front of the 3 of them. They were just about to cry out when they saw a black figure flash before them. However, their figures stopped abruptly because Chu Xiu's gaze was like a boundless vortex that was pulling them into a dark abyss. Soul-shifting art of extinguishing sky and extinguishing earth. As one of the great sorrowful poems of Yin and Yang, the power of the art of soul extinguishing and earth extinguishing could be described as strange. Right now, Chu Xiu was only at the beginner level, but he could already temporarily control the minds of some low-level warriors and affect the minds of warriors at the same level as him. When he reached the great accomplishment level, the art of soul extinguishing and earth extinguishing could even have the power to move souls. He could directly kill his enemies with illusions, destroying their souls and making them die unknowingly. Chu Xiu killed one of them and threw him into a corner. He changed into the clothes of one of the Yu clan's warriors and extinguished the lantern. He walked towards the Yu clan with his head lowered, sandwiched between the other two warriors. When they were about to reach the main gate, one of the Yu clan's warriors raised a lantern and asked in surprise, "Weren't you guys patrolling outside? Why did you come back?" The Yu clan's warrior at the front said dully, "The lantern is extinguished, go change another one." That Yu clan warrior did not have any suspicions. In the entire Yu clan mansion, there were more than 1,000 direct descendants, collateral descendants, and servants. Other than the people from the Yu clan's 9th branch, it was impossible for them to be very familiar with everyone else. That Yu clan warrior did not have any suspicions either. Sandwiched between the two warriors, Chu Xiu successfully entered the Yu clan mansion. Just as he turned a corner, a Yu clan's inner aura realm warrior walked over. Seeing the three of them, he could not help but ask suspiciously, "What are you three doing? Where's the lantern?" Under Chu Xiu's mental control, that warrior still dully said, "The lantern is extinguished, let's go change another one." That Yu clan's warrior nodded and immediately waved his hand to let the three of them leave. However, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. This inner aura realm warrior was the head of the Yu clan's 5th branch. Normally, when these servants saw him, they would greet him and call him the 5th lord. However, these three people did not show any signs of greeting. Just as he was about to interrogate them, a crimson sword light condensed with boundless killing intent. Even in the dark of the night, he could see that the crimson sword light was so bright that it shone brightly as it slashed towards him. This sudden slash caused him to not be able to react at all. However, the sudden burst of danger made him subconsciously retreat backwards. The long sword in his hand was placed horizontally in front of his body. The sword's momentum was majestic and unmoving like a mountain. Yu clan's mountain-suppressing sword art. However, Chu Xiu's slash was too fast and too strong. That inner aura realm warrior had only just come into contact with it. Before he could even display his sword's momentum, the long sword in his hand was directly cut in half by Chu Xiu's slash. Moreover, although Chu Xiu could not directly condense inner aura qi outside his body, he had already reached the inner aura realm. In addition to the power brought by piercing sun and moon, a layer of incomparably sharp killing intent was condensed on the edge of the blade. That killing intent directly slashed through the air, blasting the Yu clan's inner aura realm warrior's body, immediately causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. The clanging sound of the sword and blade clashing completely alarmed the Yu clan's mansion. However, before they could react, Chu Xiu had already directly approached them. The great purple sun hand of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth fell with a loud bang. The powerful palm force directly imprinted on the Yu clan's inner aura realm warrior's chest. That Yu clan's inner aura realm warrior wanted to counterattack, but at this time, a scorching power suddenly exploded. He let out a mournful scream and his body directly fell to the ground. At this time, the two warriors who were controlled by Chu Xiu's great soul shifting technique were about to wake up. Without Chu Xiu's mental control, their consciousness was also gradually recovering. However, at this time, a crimson sword light slashed down and the two of them directly fell to the ground. This time was tight. Chu Xiu did not leave any marks. He immediately turned around and escaped. The Yu clan's people were not slow. However, when they had all flocked over, Chu Xiu had already disappeared without a trace. After a quarter of an hour, Yu clan's 5th brother's corpse and the 3 blood condensation realm warriors' corpses were moved to the center of the hall. All the Yu clan's warriors present had gloomy expressions. It was still the Yu clan's 3rd brother, Yu Dongxing, who went to check on his injuries. After he finished looking, he said with a gloomy expression, that Blue Dragon Society assassin had infiltrated the Yu clan by disguising himself as one of our Yu clan's people. However, I still don't understand why those 2 people from our Yu clan would actually cooperate with him. Could it be that he had coerced them? Moreover, he had only fought with 5th brother for a few dozen breaths of time. How many moves could he have made in such a short time? Not even 5 moves. In other words, within 5 moves, he had killed 5th brother. Yu Dongxing tore the clothes in front of Yu clan's 5th brother's chest. There were 5 deep purple finger marks on the corpse's chest, as if the marks had penetrated deep into the bones. It was exceptionally terrifying. Only now did everyone suddenly remember the meaning of the bloody palm marks left behind by the Blue Dragon Society assassin the first time he killed someone. Yu Dongxing looked at Yu Donglu and sneered. Big brother, you were the one who said that with the Mu clan's foundation, they wouldn't be able to invite a level 5 assassin from the Blue Dragon Society. What about now? To be able to kill fifth brother within 5 moves? Who else could it be other than a physical invulnerability realm expert? This time, Yu Donglin didn't say anything. The death of a few blood condensation realm and innate rankers wasn't a big deal, but the death of an inner invulnerability realm warrior was a huge loss to the Yu clan. One must know that when they were chasing after Chu Xiu, they had already lost an inner invulnerability realm warrior. In the end, just a short period of time had passed and another one had died. At this time, Yu Luchuan said from the side, no matter how deep the Mu clan's foundation is, can it be deeper than our Yu clan's? If worst comes to worst, we can also spend some money to go to the Blue Dragon Society and let them kill the remaining members of the Mu clan. Before Yu Dongxing could say anything, Yu Henian, who was sitting on the main seat, sighed and said, it's too late. The Blue Dragon Society naturally has its own rules. This method won't work. The Blue Dragon Society is a double-edged sword. It hurts others and ourselves, but it is definitely not a sword that can be held in the hands of others. It will definitely not become a tool for both sides to fight. Right now, since we have already become the Blue Dragon Society's target, there are only 2 paths. Either we let the Blue Dragon Society kill them and complete the mission. Otherwise, we can only find the people from the Blue Dragon Society and kill them. As soon as he said this, everyone immediately looked at Yu Luchuan. After all, according to their previous speculation, the remaining member of the Mu clan was Mu Zi, and her target should be Yu Luchuan. If they let the people from the Blue Dragon Society kill him, would the assassin retreat? Seeing everyone's gaze, Yu Luchuan suddenly shivered. These few days, he had been scared to death. He had been staying with his father all day and didn't dare to leave the house. Yu Henian also realized that his words seemed to be a little ambiguous. Yu Luchuan was the key to the Yu clan's relationship with the divine martial sect. He was also his own grandson. Of course, he couldn't hand over Yu Luchuan. Moreover, if he did that, wouldn't the Yu clan still have any face left? Hence, Yu Henian directly said, if the Blue Dragon Society sent out a large number of assassins, the Yu clan could only take the initiative to commit suicide and die a quick death. There's no other way. However, that girl from the Mu clan only found a single assassin from the Blue Dragon Society. Although the enemy is in the dark and we are out in the open, we suffered some losses. However, don't forget, this is the Biling Mansion. This is the Biling Mansion where the Yu clan's words are the law. Tomorrow, I will go and gather the people from all the major forces in the Biling Mansion for a meeting. I will let them search for the traces of the Blue Dragon Society assassins. The Biling Mansion is only so big. I don't believe that we can't find an outsider. Chapter 92. The Biling Mansion was only so big. Actually, the Yu clan did not even need to look for people. The things that happened in the Yu clan over the past 3 days had already been known by the other clans. After all, the other clans were not idiots. They had already found some clues about the Yu clan after they caused such a huge commotion. Although it was not detailed, they knew that this matter was related to the Mu clan and the Blue Dragon Society. After all, the Yu clan was in the wrong in the matter with the Mu clan. They did not say anything about this. Moreover, there were assassins from the Blue Dragon Society involved, so they did not dare to get involved. As for the other small forces in the Biling Mansion, they were too weak. The Blue Dragon Society was too far away from them. With their wealth, they could only hire an innate rancor assassin from the Blue Dragon Society. It was better for them to kill people themselves. However, when they heard the Yu clan personally inviting them to discuss matters, they did not dare to refuse. In the Yu clan's main hall, the leaders of more than 10 forces in the Biling Mansion had already gathered. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to say. The Yu clan's elder, Yu Henian, walked out and sat on the main seat. He coughed and said, "Everyone, you should have heard about the things that happened in the Yu clan recently. Recently, The Yu clan has been harassed by some rascals. The enemy is in the dark, while we are in the light. Therefore, this matter is not easy to deal with. However, allowing someone to act so arrogantly in the Biling Mansion is a disgrace to the Biling Mansion. Therefore, I have to trouble everyone with one thing. All the forces in the Biling Mansion should move out together and investigate all the outsiders in the Biling Mansion. You must find that person. After saying this, Euhenian looked at the people around him and said lightly, "After this matter, the Yu clan will not forget your help." Everyone present was shocked. Obviously, they understood what Euhenian meant. If they helped, Euhenian would not forget their kindness. However, if they did not help, the Yu clan would not forget them either. Therefore, everyone present stood up and said to Euhenian, "Don't worry, Senior Yu. We will send people to search now. We will not let a rascal continue to act so arrogantly here." The Yu clan dominated the Biling Mansion. Now that they had annexed the Mu clan and attached themselves to the divine martial sect, how would they dare to disobey the Yu clan? Hence, once they received the order from the Yu clan, they immediately sent their disciples to search within the Biling Mansion. After nightfall, the various families did not stay idle. They sent their disciples with lanterns and torches to search the city. If it was only the Yu clan, Chu Xiu could naturally come and go as he pleased in the city. However, there were more than 10 great clans in the entire Biling prefecture attacking together. The number of disciples and servants had long since exceeded 10,000. It was highly possible that Chu Xiu would be discovered if he was not careful. In the dark, Chu Xiu hid in a corner and looked at the team searching for him. A cold light flashed in his eyes. In the dark, Chu Xiu hid in a corner and looked at the team searching for him. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Chu Xiu had already expected the Yu clan to come up with a countermeasure. As the number one clan in the Biling Mansion, it would be strange if the Yu clan did not make use of their power in the Biling Mansion. Unfortunately, no matter what, people only cared about themselves. Which was more important, the threat of the Yu clan or their own life and death? That night, Chu Xiu did not go to the Yu clan. Instead, he went to the Sun clan, a small clan in the Biling Mansion. The Sun clan master was only an innate ranker. There were only 3 innate rankers in the entire Sun clan. They were the weakest in the Biling Mansion. At this time, the Sun clan's clan master was in a deep sleep. The servants and some collateral relatives of the Sun clan had all been sent out by him to search for people. As the clan master, even if there was an order from the Yu clan, he naturally wouldn't personally take action. However, at this moment, the Sun family's patriarch suddenly felt that something was wrong. In his sleep, he suddenly felt a chill. He subconsciously opened his eyes, and what appeared before him was an expressionless black iron mask. Although it looked stiff, it was actually very strange. Through the black iron mask, a pair of eyes that looked like they were looking at a dead man. He subconsciously wanted to scream, but Chu Xiu directly covered his mouth. The red sleeve blade was placed on his neck, and the cold blade made the Sun family patriarch feel a frightening killing intent and chill, causing him to not dare to move at all. Moving the blade away, Chu Xiu stretched out his finger and made a shushing gesture. "Don't make a noise at night. Mind your manners." The Sun clan master hurriedly nodded with a terrified expression on his face. Chu Xiu moved his hand away and pointed at his mask and bamboo hat. He said softly, "Do you know who I am?" The Sun clan master trembled and said, "Yes, you are a member of the Blue Dragon Society." Chu Xiu said, "It's good that you recognize me. Since you know that I am from the Blue Dragon Society, why did you still dare to search for me in the Biling Mansion?" The Sun clan master said with a sad face, "It was the Yu clan who forced us. We didn't want to do this." As he said this, the Sun clan master looked at Chu Xiu carefully and said, "I heard that the Blue Dragon Society doesn't kill innocent people except for their targets, right? This time, your target is the Yu clan. We, a small clan like ours, can't afford to offend the two of you. We are also very helpless when we are stuck in the middle." Chu Xiu said lightly, "The Blue Dragon Society doesn't kill innocent people. If no one is paying us, why would we waste our energy to kill people? But the aristocratic families of the Biling Mansion are different. I want to kill someone from the Yu clan, but you are helping the Yu clan to search for me. You are stopping me from completing my mission and hindering me from killing people. Tell me, what is the meaning of this? Cutting off one's source of wealth is like killing one's parents. You are helping the Yu clan, which is the same as cutting off my source of wealth. Do you still think that you are innocent? The Sun Clan master was about to cry. He said with a sad face, but the Yu clan. Chu Xiu waved his hand and interrupted the Sun Clan master. I don't care about the Yu clan or not. The mission that the Blue Dragon Society has accepted must be completed. As he said this, Chu Xiu pulled out the long blade that the Sun Clan master had placed on the bed. He gathered his earth energy on his finger and drew a dragon mark that represented the symbol of the Blue Dragon Society on the long blade. He threw it aside and said lightly, "Tomorrow, take this to the other families and tell them that the choice is in their hands. You should know what to do." After saying this, Chu Xiu left immediately. The Sun Clan master did not even dare to call for help. He could only look at his long blade and cry. On the second day, the Sun Clan's clan leader gathered all the people from the other forces in Biling Manor and threw out the long blade right in front of them. Everyone was instantly shocked, and someone said with a dark expression, "Old Sun, what is the meaning of this? Are you showing the blade in front of us?" The Sun Clan master smiled bitterly. "Everyone, take a look at the thing on the blade." Only after hearing his words did everyone notice the dragon pattern on the blade, causing their expressions to change abruptly. "The Blue Dragon Society came to find you?" the person from before asked. The Sun Clan master nodded with a sad face and said, "The killer from the Blue Dragon Society said that cutting off one's source of wealth is the same as killing one's parents. If we stop him from killing the Yu clan, we will be cutting off his source of wealth. This blade is a warning from the other party. He said that the choice is in our hands. Everyone, I have already told you what to do. Do as you see fit. Anyway, I am not going to get involved in this matter." In the middle of the night, when I open my eyes, I see an expressionless black iron mask in front of me with a long blade on my neck. If this happens a few more times, even if I don't die, I will be scared to death. If the Yu clan goes too far, the Sun clan will simply move out of the Biling Mansion. If we can't afford to offend them, can't we just hide? Everyone present looked at each other in dismay, unable to hide the fear in their hearts. They knew how many people from the Yu clan had died. Whether it was an innate rancor or an inner aura rancor, they couldn't stop the killer. Even an inner aura rancor was killed in the Yu clan. Who could bear such a thing? As for the other small clans in the Biling Mansion, most of them were only innate rancors. Only a few of them had inner aura rancors. Even so, they couldn't stop the killer from the Blue Dragon Society. The killer could kill people in the Yu clan like a game. Killing them was simply too easy. The warrior from before said, "Old Sun, don't be anxious. The Yu clan is too overbearing. We have long been dissatisfied with this. It is not worthwhile to offend such a terrifying killer from the Blue Dragon Society for the sake of the Yu clan. So, we really can't interfere in this matter anymore. However, our powerful clans have stayed in the Biling Mansion for at least a few decades. Why should we move out of the Biling Mansion just because of the Yu clan? Not to mention the fact that it is difficult to settle down in other places. It is not easy to find a place with such rich chi of heaven and earth. So, why don't we all join forces and help the Yu clan search for the killer on the surface, but in reality, we should not make any noise no matter what we see. It is as if we are blind. What do you all think?" Everyone present looked at each other and nodded. This was a good idea. Chapter 93. On the fourth day, as expected, the assassin from the Azure Dragon Society did not show up. This caused the people of the Yu clan to be extremely excited. They thought that the assassin from the Azure Dragon Society had been frightened by them. However, on the fifth day, Chu Xiu saw the reactions of the other clans in the Biling Manor. This caused a cold smile to appear on his face, and he continued to sneak into the Yu clan at night to kill. Moreover, because the other clans in the Biling Mansion let him off easy, Chu Xiu did not need to hide outside the city after killing people. He only needed to change his clothes and hide a little. No one would care if he set up an ambush in the city. The people from the other clans had been instructed by their superiors that they were all blind and mute during this period of time. They had to pretend that they didn't see anything or anyone they saw and not make a sound. This gave Chu Xiu a lot of convenience. However, in this way, the Yu clan gradually fell into despair. For 3 consecutive days, people died every night, and there was more than one. There were blood condensation realm and innate realm warriors. This time, no inner aura realm warriors died. This was because the Yu clan had learned to be smart. At night, the inner aura realm warriors would patrol in pairs. Chu Xiu was confident that he could kill an inner aura realm warrior in a few moves, but he could not kill 2. However, it was also because of this that the inner aura realm warriors' patrol range became larger. Sometimes, they would only hear the commotion after Chu Xiu had killed a few people, but Chu Xiu would escape calmly. In this kind of atmosphere, panic gradually spread. Chu Xiu killed people, but what he destroyed was the heart. There were less than 200 people in the Yu clan's 9 branches, so they could gather in the Yu clan's inner residence calmly. Naturally, they were not afraid of being killed by Chu Xiu. However, the Yu clan's collateral relatives and servants occupied the majority. The Yu clan's inner residence could not accommodate so many people, so those who died were basically collateral relatives and servants. Sometimes, death was not the most terrifying thing. The unknown was the most terrifying thing. No one knew when death would befall them. Every night, the Yu clan's collateral disciples and servants would tremble with fear as if they were about to go to the execution ground. No one knew if they would be able to see the next day's sun. When the next morning arrived, they all heaved a sigh of relief. Feeling their backs drenched in cold sweat, these people all felt as if they had just survived a disaster. There was a great terror between life and death. To the people of the Yu clan, they were currently living between life and death. Every day, their lives were not in their control. This kind of feeling was not good, not to mention that they had to experience it every day. Hence, after 3 days, there were finally people who could not take it anymore. The Yu clan's servants started to flee. Especially at night, when some of the Yu clan servants carried lanterns and patrolled the area, they immediately left and never returned. At first, some people thought that they were killed by the assassins of the Blue Dragon Society. However, when they didn't find any corpses and noticed that there were too many of them, they realized that these people had actually escaped. Moreover, this kind of thing happened once. At first, there were only a few people who escaped, but later, there were more than a dozen of them. 7 days later, in the Yu clan's conference hall, everyone's faces were gloomy. Yu Henian looked at Yu Donglin of the Yu clan's first branch and asked, "How many people ran away yesterday?" Yu Donglin's expression was ugly. After a while, he said, "More than 300 people?" As soon as he said that, everyone's expressions turned extremely ugly. The Yu clan was a clan that had reproduced in the Bailing prefecture for many generations. They were different from the other small clans. The servants in the clan were also carefully trained by the Yu clan. Some of them were even the descendants of the old servants of the Yu clan. Their ability and loyalty were definitely guaranteed. In the end, more than 300 people ran away in one day. It must be known that the total number of Yu clan servants was less than 4,000. In just one day, 1/10 of them had already run away. Our Yu clan is in danger. After a long while, Yu Henian finally spat out these words. In the beginning, no one in the Yu clan took a killer from the Blue Dragon Society seriously. The Blue Dragon Society had accepted the mission of exterminating an entire clan. However, the price of exterminating an entire clan was too high. Even if they took out all the assets of the Mu clan, it would still be impossible to invite the Blue Dragon Society to exterminate the Yu clan. A single killer could at most bring some trouble to the Yu clan. However, who would have thought that such a killer had killed more than a dozen of their people in the past few days? In the end, he had indirectly forced hundreds of them to run away. This had already affected the Yu clan's foundation. Yu Donglin said in a deep voice, "Father, if there's really no other way, we can only inform the divine martial sect and ask them to send an expert to settle this." Previously, The Yu clan had never thought of asking the divine martial sect for help. It wasn't that the Yu clan hadn't thought of this, but that they didn't want to go. The Yu clan had indeed climbed up to the divine martial sect. However, the key point was that the Yu clan was only climbing up to the divine martial sect. They could ask for help from the divine martial sect, but this kind of favor would only get weaker and weaker. Therefore, the Yu clan wasn't willing to trouble the divine martial sect unless it was a big matter. However, now that the killer from the Blue Dragon Society had already threatened the Yu clan's foundation, it would be impossible not to send someone to ask for help. Yu Henian also nodded and said, "Then let's go. The fourth prince, you should go this time. The south of Yen Kingdom is quite far from here. Bring some people and return quickly. Alright, it would be best if the divine martial sect could send an expert at the level of 3 flowers and 5 chi. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I won't be able to deal with the killer from the Blue Dragon Society." Although Yu Henian was a little old, he still had the strength of a physical invulnerability expert. These few days, he had been patrolling the Yu clan's inner residence for a period of time. However, he didn't even have the chance to meet Chu Xiu face to face. The other party's killing power and hidden strength had somewhat exceeded Yu Henian's imagination. This was definitely an exceptionally troublesome person. He was afraid that even a physical invulnerability expert from the divine martial sect wouldn't be able to suppress the other party. The fourth prince of the Yu clan nodded. Without any delay, he immediately brought his people and departed. Because they had to travel fast, the fourth prince of the Yu clan didn't bring too many people. He only brought a dozen of his trusted subordinates and went down the mountain. However, just as they left, Chu Xiu walked out from a small alley not far from the Yu clan's mansion. His eyes revealed a hint of coldness. The warriors who followed the fourth prince of the Yu clan to the divine martial sect consisted of collateral relatives and servants. They were all in a good mood at the moment. Since they had followed the fourth master out, they didn't have to go on night patrol anymore. They didn't have to experience the feeling of losing their lives at any time. The mountain road in the Biling mansion was steep. Although they had fast horses, they couldn't ride them. They could only walk with their horses. Just as they turned a corner, a black-clothed man stood in the middle of the road in front of them. He wore a black-clothed bamboo hat with golden patterns on it and a black-clothed mask on his face. He stood there with a blade in his hand, emitting a cold light from his body. The people from the Yu clan were all stunned. However, an extreme sense of fear shrouded their bodies, including the fourth prince of the Yu clan. The leader of the Yu clan's fifth branch had died in the hands of this Black Dragon Triad assassin. He didn't even manage to resist a few moves before he was killed. His strength wasn't much stronger than the people from the Yu clan's fifth branch. Now that he was faced with such a terrifying existence, what could he use to defend himself? Run! The fourth prince of the Yu clan shouted, then immediately turned around and ran up the mountain. It was a pity that he didn't make it clear in his haste. Some of his subordinates ran up the mountain with him, while others ran in all directions. Chu Xiu didn't care about the others. Instead, he slashed his blade towards the fourth prince of the Yu clan. The crimson blade force was like a continuous drizzle. The powerful force caused the fourth prince's expression to change abruptly. His strength was slightly stronger than the warrior from the Yu clan's fifth branch. Furthermore, it wasn't Chu Xiu who launched a sneak attack. However, even so, he could still feel the strength of this Chu Xiu. A long sword appeared in the hands of the fourth prince of the Yu clan. When the sword force slashed horizontally, it was majestic. This was the Yu clan's secret mountain calming sword art. It had both offense and defense, and was incomparably steady. Moreover, the long sword in the hands of the fourth prince of the Yu clan was emitting a dark light. That was the effect of the earth chi attached to the long sword. It carried an incomparably vigorous power. When the blade and the sword collided, Chu Xiu immediately felt a suction force appear. It could actually indirectly affect his blade force. This made Chu Xiu a little flabbergasted. The Yu clan was most famous for their mountain calming sword art, which was both offensive and defensive. He didn't expect that the Yu clan's internal energy would actually have this kind of effect. It was a pity that in front of Chu Xiu, this little bit of effect was nothing at all. The blade force fell down like a violent storm. It was extremely fast, so fast that the fourth prince of the Yu clan didn't even have a chance to react. Dozens of slashes fell, and almost all of them landed on the same spot. The long sword in the hands of the fourth prince of the Yu clan broke with a loud bang. A crimson blade appeared in front of him. The fourth prince of the Yu clan shouted loudly. His hands were suffused with a dark gold color, and he slapped towards the blade with a loud bang. A loud sound was heard. Chu Xiu's blade was actually deflected by the palm of the fourth prince of the Yu clan, and it fell into the air by a hair's breadth. The warriors of the Yu clan weren't good at fighting, but the Yu clan's 9 branches all had their own businesses. It was normal for them to learn other martial arts by chance, or to find some opportunities from the secret boxes. The dark gold palm in front of him was the martial art that the fourth prince of the Yu clan had obtained from the secret box. Moreover, he didn't tell anyone about it. He had been secretly training it all along, using it as his trump card. Now that he was facing a life and death situation, he couldn't care less about hiding it anymore. Chapter 94. Among the skills that focused on training both hands, the iron sand palm or the gold-splitting palm practiced by Ding Kaishan from the Kaishan Dojo in Tongzhou Prefecture were actually considered low-level skills. They mainly trained one's own palms and blood. However, the golden black palm of the fourth prince directly used his inner strength to control his aura and condensed it on his hands, causing it to emit a dark gold color. After mastering it, he could fight against a fourth transformation precious weapon. There was even a special set of palm skills to complement it. Looking at its grade, it was at least a fourth transformation precious weapon. It was even comparable to the Yu clan's secret mountain suppressing sword technique. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Oh my, you really hit it well. I'm afraid that no one else in your Yu clan knows this palm skill, right?" The fourth prince's face darkened, but he didn't say anything. In the Yu clan's 9th branch, before anyone stepped into the physical invulnerability realm, everyone wanted to fight for the position of the next clan master. His golden black palm was originally prepared to be used when fighting for the position of clan master. In the end, he was forced to use it. Fortunately, his subordinates had all run away and no one saw it. It was a pity that he understood that at this moment, it didn't matter if anyone saw it or not. Amidst the continuous blade attacks, Yu clan's fourth brother's golden black palm was impenetrable. He used his bare hands to block the blade's edge. It was as if he was using his own inner energy to exhaust Chu Xiu's inner energy. However, he didn't know that even if he used up his inner strength, Chu Xiu's Xiantian skill would still be able to exhaust his opponent to death with his frightening inner strength. However, Chu Xiu didn't want to continue wasting time like this. The black gold palm was quite effective against sharp weapons like sabers and swords, but what about the heaven-extinguishing earth-annihilating great violet sun palm, which was even stronger than the palm? A layer of dark purple appeared on Chu Xiu's left palm, and at the same time, the power of piercing the sun and moon erupted with a loud rumble, adding a bit of dark red to the purple color. When this palm landed, it collided with the Yu clan's the fourth prince's golden black palm. Immediately, a loud explosion was heard. Chu Xiu took a step back, but the fourth prince of the Yu clan immediately let out a mournful howl. The dark gold color on his palm had disappeared and was replaced by a dark purple color. The fourth prince of the Yu clan's entire arm was trembling. The power of the great purple sun hand entered his body and spread through his entire body's meridians. That scorching heat could not be suppressed by the little bit of internal energy he had. Immediately, the fourth prince of the Yu clan felt as if his entire body had started to burn. He fell to the ground and let out mournful wails. At this moment, the pain he was feeling was even more intense than being thrown into a bonfire and burned to death. It was a burning pain that penetrated deep into his bones. The power of the purple sun devil flame was not something ordinary flames could compare to. "Kill me! Quickly kill me!" The fourth prince of the Yu clan roared crazily. Previously, he was still thinking about how to escape, but now he wanted to die immediately. He did not want to experience this kind of pain that was worse than death anymore. Chu Xiu directly walked over and stabbed the fourth prince of the Yu clan's chest with his blade. He said indifferently, "Actually, I am a very kind person sometimes. I can't bear to see people suffer." Pulling out his blade, the fourth prince of the Yu clan had a look of relief in his eyes. Perhaps he was the only one among the people who had died in Chu Xiu's hands who did not feel unreconciled. Instead, he felt happy. Speaking of which, this was the second time that Chu Xiu had used the Great Purple Sun Hand. The first time he used it, it was a series of surprise attacks, directly smashing the opponent's heart meridians. Hence, other than feeling that this palm technique was very powerful, Chu Xiu did not feel that there was anything special about it. And this time, when he used it, it allowed Chu Xiu to experience the terrifying aspects of this technique. Among people of the same rank, other than using their own inner strength to suppress the purple sun devil flame, there was almost no way to deal with it. It could be said that in the future, when Chu Xiu fought with other people, as long as the opponent used the Great Purple Sun Hand, he would either have to use his innate qi to suppress the power of the purple sun devil flame, or be like the fourth prince of the Yu clan, who was too weak. Even if he wanted to use his innate qi to suppress it, he would not be able to do it. He would be roasted by the purple sun devil flame to the point where he could neither live nor die. Of course, there was another way, and that was to forcefully endure the pain and fight with Chu Xiu. In any case, although the power of the purple sun devil flame was huge, it was not something that could kill with just a touch. However, among people of the same rank, there were not many who had this kind of willpower, unless they could train to the point where they could not feel pain at all. To be able to become a part of the great sorrowful poem of heaven and earth, which could shock the heavens and make ghosts weep, the power of the Great Purple Sun Hand would definitely not be too bad. Picking up the corpse of the fourth prince of the Yu clan, Chu Xiu chased after one of the Yu clan's warriors. With the speed at which these Yu clan's warriors were fleeing in all directions, it was impossible for Chu Xiu to catch up and kill all of them. However, catching up to one of them was not a problem. When that warrior was caught by Chu Xiu, he was so scared that he almost peed his pants. However, Chu Xiu did not kill him. He only threw the Yu clan's the fourth prince's corpse to him and said indifferently, "Bring the corpse back to the Yu clan. At the same time, tell the Yu clan's people that our Blue Dragon Society does not kill innocent people. I only want to complete my mission. Do you understand?" Even if that Yu clan's warrior did not understand, he hurriedly nodded his head, not daring to disobey. In the Yu clan's great hall, Yu Henian stood in the middle. Out of the 8 inner aura realm warriors, there were only 6 of them left. Looking at the Yu clan's the fourth prince's corpse on the ground, the few of them had gloomy expressions. Losing 2 inner aura realm warriors in succession, and even letting a few hundred servants escape, was definitely a huge loss for the Yu clan. The warrior who brought back the Yu clan's the fourth prince's corpse trembled and said, "The Blue Dragon Society's assassin said that the Blue Dragon Society does not kill innocent people. He only wants to complete his mission." As soon as he said this, everyone present subconsciously looked at Yu Luchuan, who was sitting in the corner. The Blue Dragon Society's assassin had already said it clearly. The people who were killed during this period of time were all innocent people. And the assassin's mission target was Yu Luchuan. Being stared at by everyone, Yu Luchuan subconsciously shrunk his neck. Yu Henian coughed once, drawing everyone's attention to himself. The fourth prince was killed by the Blue Dragon Society's assassin. Did the others escape? That disciple hesitated for a while and said, although the fourth master died in the hands of the Blue Dragon Society's assassin, he also delayed the other party for a while. Moreover, the assassin came to chase after me, wasting some time again. The others should have escaped. Yu Henian said in a deep voice, "It's good that they escaped. If they escaped, someone would be able to smoothly pass the news to the divine martial sect." At this time, the Yu clan's third brother Yu Dongxing suddenly said, "Father, we can't go on like this anymore. The divine martial sect is far away in the south of Yen Kingdom, but this is the east of Yen Kingdom. Going back and forth for almost a month, what should we do about the Yu clan's losses during this period of time? Today's matter has already proven that although the Blue Dragon Society's assassin is strong, he is only one person. If our Yu clan directly moves away and everyone scatters, the Blue Dragon Society's assassin can only kill one or two of us. Do you think they can kill the entire Yu clan? Some of the Yu clan's disciples' eyes immediately lit up. This was a good choice. Rather than waiting here for the Blue Dragon Society's assassin to sneak attack and kill them one by one, it would be better for them to leave directly. For example, those servants who had escaped previously. Although they were no longer part of the Yu clan, they could at least keep their lives. However, Yu Henin immediately shook his head at this time and said, "No. Absolutely not. Third brother, you only care about your own life, but have you ever considered our Yu clan's reputation? Our Yu clan has been rooted in this northern mountain prefecture for many generations and built up such a huge foundation, becoming one of the top aristocratic families in the entire Linzhong commandery. In the end, we were forced to leave by a single person. Do you still want our Yu clan's reputation? Right now, Lu Chuan is preparing to marry into the Divine Martial Sect. Although the Divine Martial Sect doesn't mind that our Yu clan is just a small clan, do you think Yan Huainan would marry his daughter into a family of cowards who only know how to run away? Also, our Yu clan's foundation in Northern Mountain Prefecture can be taken away, but we can't take away our foundation." After Yu Henian finished speaking, Yu Dongxing lowered his head, but his eyes were clouded. Although Yu Henian said it was for the sake of the Yu clan's reputation, he was actually afraid that it would affect Yu Luchuan's reputation and cause the marriage with the Divine Martial Sect to go awry. Yu Dongxing couldn't understand it no matter how hard he tried. His father was one of the most influential people in the martial arts world of the East Yen Kingdom when he was young. He even had some friendship with Nrenlong, the manor lord of the Loyalty Gathering Manor. In the end, the older he was in the martial arts world, the more timid he became. He only wanted to curry favor with the Divine Martial Sect. In the past, even without the Divine Martial Sect, didn't the Yu clans still reach their current status? Looking at the people in the hall, Yu Henian slammed the table and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. As long as the news spreads, the Divine Martial Sect will definitely send someone over. Our Yu clan has been passed down for hundreds of years. What kind of storms have we not experienced? Hold on for another month. When the Divine Martial Sect sends someone over, the assassin from the Blue Dragon Society will definitely be executed." Regardless of whether the people present agreed or disagreed, they could only nod. However, who knew how many people from the Yu clan would die in this 1 month? Chapter 95. Yu Henian chose to hang on until the Divine Martial Sect arrived. The killers from the Blue Dragon Society would be executed and the Yu clan's crisis would be resolved. However, it was unknown who had spread the news in the conference hall at that time, but everyone in the Yu clan knew what Chu Xiu had said. This had also caused some changes in the Yu clan's mentality. In their eyes, they were all innocent people and the main culprit was Yu Luchuan. The killer's target was him, but he hid in the inner residence and did not come out. He just watched others get killed. Wasn't this unfair? Moreover, after this incident, Chu Xiu started a new round of killing. Because the Yu clan had lost 2 inner Aura Realm warriors and hundreds of servants had escaped, the patrolling of the Yu clan became weaker and weaker. The number of people Chu Xiu could kill at night also increased, from 1 or 2 to a few, and in the end, it even increased to more than 10. After a few days, the atmosphere in the Yu clan had become like a barrel of gunpowder. It was very heavy, as if it would explode at any time. There was a small tavern not far from the Yu clan mansion. It didn't even have a proper name, but it was the third son of the Yu clan, Yu Dongxing's favorite place. This was because the Sichuan dishes here were more authentic. When Yu Dongxing was young, he followed his family to the Sichuan region of the Western Chu to do business. He stayed there for a long time, and even his taste had unknowingly become biased towards the Sichuan region. Seeing Yu Dongxing step into the tavern, the shopkeeper immediately welcomed him and said, "Third master, do you want to follow the old rules?" Yu Dongxing did not say anything. He only nodded and walked straight upstairs. He was in a bad mood recently. The Yu clan's crisis was pressing down on everyone's heads. Although he was an inner Aura Realm warrior, As long as he was careful, he would not be afraid of the assassins from the Blue Dragon Society. However, the other losses were unacceptable to Yu Dongxing. Among the 9 branches of the Yu clan, the 3rd branch was even more powerful than the 1st branch. However, because they had more people, the 3rd branch had suffered the most deaths these days. The collateral relatives of the 3rd branch were killed. A few of the direct descendants were also killed. Some of the servants ran away. Looking at the 1st branch's people, because they had Euhenian's protection, they could hide in the main house and stay safe. This kind of differential treatment made Yu Dongxing very unhappy, but he didn't dare to refute Euhenian. He could only come to this small tavern to drink some wine when he was unhappy, to calm down and relieve some of his stress. Originally, such a small tavern did not have a private room. However, because Yu Dongxing often came here, the shopkeeper changed his own room on the 2nd floor into a private room. It was a private room specially prepared for Yu Dongxing. With a heavy heart, Yu Dongxing casually pushed open the door of the private room. However, his footsteps suddenly stopped, because there was a person wearing a black warrior's uniform, a black iron hat with golden patterns, and a black iron mask sitting in the private room. Who else could it be other than an assassin from the Blue Dragon Society? However, Yu Dongxing had never thought that the other party would actually be so daring as to openly appear in front of him in broad daylight, not far from the Yu clan. He was simply too daring and extremely arrogant. Yu Dongxing subconsciously wanted to shout, but at this time, Chu Xiu raised his finger and made a shushing gesture. He said softly, "Don't speak, close the door and sit down. Otherwise, I will kill you." Chu Xiu's tone was very soft, but in Yu Dongxing's ears, it made his hair stand on end. He forcefully held back the words he was about to shout. In just a short moment, Yu Dongxing had figured out his situation. The Yu clan's 5th brother and the 4th prince had died in the hands of this assassin from the Blue Dragon Society in front of him. Even though he was confident that he was stronger than the other 2, he knew that this assassin from the Azure Dragon Society could easily kill him if he wanted to. In this kind of situation, if he shouted, it would easily alert the Yu clan's people. However, this assassin from the Blue Dragon Society would also kill him before they arrived. In the end, whether he should sacrifice himself and call the Yu clan's people over to stall this assassin from the Blue Dragon Society, or save his own life, Yu Dongxing chose the 2nd option without hesitation. After closing the door, Yu Dongxing sat opposite Chu Xiu. He placed his hands on the table and said in a low voice, "How dare you? You actually dare to appear here in broad daylight. Do you really think that there is no one in the Yu clan?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Your Yu clan does have people, but unfortunately, they are only trash." Seeing Yu Dongxing's angry expression, Chu Xiu changed the topic and said, "Of course, 3rd Master Yu, you are not trash. You are one of the few people in the Yu clan who understand the situation." Yu Dongxing snorted coldly and said, "Appearing here in broad daylight, what are you trying to do?" At this time, Yu Dongxing understood that the other party probably did not want to kill him. Otherwise, if the other party launched a sneak attack when he opened the door, he would not be able to block more than a few moves. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "3rd Master Yu, you should know what I want. Actually, what I want is very simple. I just want to complete the mission." Yu Dongxing said in a low voice, "How much money did the Mu clan give you? My Yu clan can give you even more." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "3rd Master Yu, you can't say it like that. Everything in this world has rules. Killing people also has rules. If I break the rules of the Blue Dragon Society, I will be the one who will be out of luck. So you are saying that you want to exterminate my Yu clan?" Yu Dongxing stared at Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Didn't you hear what I told your Yu clan's disciples to tell you? I said that I only want to complete the mission. Moreover, forgive me for being blunt, 3rd Master Yu, your Yu clan's 9 branches are all doing this for the 1st branch, for Yu Luchuan." Yu Dongxing's expression suddenly changed. "What do you mean?" Chu Xiu looked at Yu Dongxing. A whirlpool seemed to spin in his eyes, quietly affecting the atmosphere in the room. "3rd Master Yu, don't you understand what I am saying? Isn't this what you are thinking? Whose idea was it to exterminate the Mu clan? It was the Yu clan's first branch, it was Yu Luchuan, who benefited the most in the end. It was also them, who was the one who attached themselves to the divine martial sect. One was the Yu clan's first branch, the other was Yu Luchuan. In the end, the divine martial sect would only help them. Before this incident, the Yu clan's 9 branches had always taken turns to control the Yu clan. Whoever was more capable and contributed more to the Yu clan would be the one to make the decisions. But now, ever since the Yu clan's first branch attached themselves to the divine martial sect, it could be said that they had completely turned over. Your Yu clan's elder, Yu Henian, had even started to openly lean towards the first branch. Now, I have killed many of your Yu clan's people, but I have not succeeded in killing the person I wanted to kill the most. What's the point of you stopping me here? You are just sacrificing your life for someone else's sake. After a few decades or 100 years, the Yu clan's first branch will completely control the Yu clan. At that time, the first branch's descendants will be the direct descendants. What about you? You will become a branch family. At that time, think about what you have done today. Third Master Yu, the Yu clan has been very unfair to you. Chu Xiu's eyes faintly had an unfathomable expression, but Yu Dongxing couldn't feel it at all. With Chu Xiu's current cultivation of the art of extinguishing heaven, destroying earth and soul shifting, although he was unable to control Yu Dongxing, an inner strong realm martial artist, he was still able to influence his opponent's state of mind and magnify a certain emotion in his heart. This was something Chu Xiu could do. At this time, Yu Dongxing's heart was already filled with one word that Chu Xiu had said: unfair. The Yu clan's 9 branches had always respected those who were capable. Although his elder brother occupied the position of the first branch in name, what contributions did he make to the clan? In the early years, he was the one who led the clan's rankers to fight outside. He was also the one who led a caravan to travel thousands of miles to West Chu to trade. He was also the one who didn't return home for many years. In the clan, he was still the one who had the highest reputation and was the most respected. But now, just because his elder brother's son climbed up to the divine martial sect leader's daughter, his father started to lean towards the first branch. Now, he and the others had to be the Yu clan's first branch's shield. After fighting for so long, not only was there no hope for the clan leader's position, after a few decades, even his own branch would be reduced to a branch family. Unfair, how unfair? Looking at Yu Dongxing, Chu Xiu retracted the soul-shifting technique and said softly, "Third Master Yu, I will still say the same thing. I only want to complete my mission. The internal affairs of your Yu clan are things that even an outsider like me can't bear to watch. I think that within the Yu clan, those who are dissatisfied with Yu Henian and the first branch must be the majority, right? Finally, I will give you one more thing. The Yu clan is very big. Even if more than half of its people died, it is still a big clan in Linzhong County. As for what you should do, Third Master Yu, you should think about it yourself. I won't disturb your meal anymore." After saying this, Chu Xiu immediately pushed open the window and disappeared in a flash. Only Yu Dongxing was left sitting on the same spot, his face filled with uncertainty. Chapter 96. Regarding the mission to destroy the Yu clan, Chu Xiu had never planned to rely on his own strength from the very beginning. Killing more than 10 people every day, even if he killed for a year, he would not be able to kill all the Yu clan's people. Moreover, he did not even need to wait for a year. The divine martial sect would send reinforcements. Therefore, during this period of time, everything he did was to create an atmosphere of panic, to create a sense of oppression, to make the Yu clan explode from the inside, and finally explode into pieces. The current Chu Xiu had already planted a seed in Yu Dongxing's heart, a seed of resentment. He believed that it would not take long for this seed to germinate. At this time, in the private room, Yu Dongxing had been sitting there for half a quarter of an hour. At this time, the door of the private room was pushed open, and the shopkeeper personally came to serve the dishes, interrupting Yu Dongxing's thoughts. "Get out!" Yu Dongxing shouted angrily. The shopkeeper's hands immediately trembled, and he almost dropped the plate in his hands. He hurriedly retreated. Although this third master's attitude was not usually kind, he was not as violent as today. Could it be that he had done something wrong to provoke this third master? His thoughts being interrupted made Yu Dongxing's eyes reveal a hint of ruthlessness. What the Blue Dragon Society assassin said was right, it was unfair. The Yu clan was very unfair to him, even an outsider could see it. Among the 9 branches of the Yu clan, his third branch had contributed the most to the Yu clan. Why did he not get the position of clan master, but now become someone else's shield, and in the future become a branch family? At this moment, he had already made his decision. He wanted to force the Yu clan to abdicate. Just like what the Blue Dragon Society assassin had said, the Yu clan was very strong in Linzhong Commandery. Even if half of the Yu clan died, they would still be a big family in Linzhong Commandery. The great art of extinguishing the heavens, destroying the earth, and soul shifting affected the other party's mind and will. What Chu Xiu did just now could not even be considered as an influence. It had only amplified some thoughts and desires in Yu Dongxing's heart. It was so big that the seed planted by Chu Xiu completely exploded, causing Yu Dongxing to lose his usual calmness and decide to stake everything on one throw. Yu Dongxing did not notice this subtle change because this was his true nature. However, there were some things that he only dared to think about in the past, but now he dared to do them. After the decision was made, Yu Dongxing did not waste even a quarter of an hour. He immediately looked for the people from the other branches of the Yu clan and the Yu clan's hanger-ons. After Chu Xiu killed 2 inner aura rankers, the Yu clan only had 6 inner aura rankers left. Among them, 3 were inner aura rankers from the Yu clan's direct line of descent. Other than the first branch, the 9th branch's inner aura rankers stood on Yu Dongxing's side. They also had some complaints about Yu Henian's favoritism towards the first branch. As for the 3 inner aura rankers, one of them was the Yu clan's old butler. He was loyal and devoted to Yu Henian and would never betray him. Therefore, Yu Dongxing did not look for him at all. As for the other 2, one of them was from the Yu clan's branch family and was very low-key. The other was Yu Dongxing's good friend in the pugilistic world, Chen Dingwu. Since he was invited to be a hanger-on, he would definitely stand on his side. When the 3 of them were summoned by Yu Dongxing, they were all a little puzzled. They did not know what Yu Dongxing wanted to do. After closing the study room's door, Yu Dongxing said to the 3 people present in a deep voice, "Everyone, you should have seen the Yu clan's situation. Since things have developed to this point, I don't need to say more about who is responsible. It's all because of that greedy idiot Yu Luchuan. Not only did he break off the engagement, he also wanted to exterminate the Mu clan, which provoked the Blue Dragon Society's assassins. In the end, you all saw it. The first branch's people hid in the inner house and did not get hurt. The ones who died were all our people. Moreover, when the people from the Divine Martial Sect arrive, Yu Luchuan will successfully marry the Divine Martial Sect. From then on, the Yu clan will be completely under the first branch's control. We will completely become collateral relatives." When the Yu clan's 9th brother heard Yu Dongxing's words, he also nodded and said, "Third brother is right. I have been dissatisfied with this matter for a long time. However, Lord Father is obviously siding with Big Brother and the others. What can we do?" Yu Dongxing's eyes revealed a hint of ruthlessness as he said, "What should we do? Of course we force him to abdicate. Lord Father is old, he no longer has the drive he had in the past. Instead of thinking about how to develop the Yu clan, he wholeheartedly thinks about how to cater to the Divine Martial Sect. He wants to rely on the big sects to develop the Yu clan. This will only make our Yu clan's disciples lose their drive, and in the end, we will raise a bunch of trash. Therefore, we can only ask Lord Father to temporarily abdicate his position. As for that Blue Dragon Society assassin, doesn't he want to complete his mission? All right, let him kill Yu Luchuan and the first branch's people. If we let him complete his mission, our Yu clan's crisis will naturally be resolved." As soon as he said this, the few people present, other than Yu Dongxing's good friend Chen Dingwu, revealed a shocked expression on their faces. The Yu clan's 9th brother was still all right. He also had this kind of thought in secret, but he immediately extinguished it. Unlike the current Yu Dongxing who actually dared to say it out loud. As for the Yu clan's inner aura realm warrior from the collateral family, he immediately stood up and said, "Third brother, I will pretend that I have never heard of this matter today. Since it entered my ears, it will not enter the mouth of a second person. Goodbye." After saying this, the collateral family warrior immediately wanted to leave. Although he was a member of the Yu clan, he was still a collateral family member. He really didn't dare to participate in this kind of scheming among the direct descendants. Moreover, the Yu clan's old ancestor was also one of the targets. At this moment, Yu Dongxing suddenly said, "Who said that it has nothing to do with you? As long as you agree to do this for me, from now on, your Yu Ping's descendants will be direct descendants of the Yu clan." As soon as he said this, Yu Ping's footsteps immediately stopped. Although these collateral family members might have been direct descendants of the Yu clan 100 years ago, as the person in charge changed or the bloodline dispersed, they naturally became collateral family members. Although they were all disciples of the Yu clan, the treatment of the direct descendants and collateral family members was different. Yu Dongxing's words had already moved him. Looking at Yu Ping, Yu Dongxing said in a deep voice, "Father is already old, he only knows how to adhere to the old rules. In the future, if I become the clan master, then the Yu clan's rules will naturally change. What direct descendants or collateral family members, they are all my Yu clan's blood. Why must we be so unreasonable? If I become the clan master, as long as the clansmen have strength, no matter where they come from, they will all be direct descendants of my Yu clan." As soon as he said this, even Yu Ping couldn't help but turn around and sit down. However, he still hesitated and asked, "Third brother, is what you said true?" Yu Dongxing smiled and said, "Do you think I would lie to you in front of other people?" At this time, Yu clan's ninth brother said hesitantly, "Third brother, you want to force the clan master to abdicate, but there are many problems in this. We can't even fight against father alone. If father is really angered, he will ruthlessly cripple us. Also, if we kill the first house's people, especially Yu Luchuan, how will we explain to the divine martial sect?" Yu Dongxing said indifferently, "Since we want to force the clan master to abdicate, the most important thing is to force him first. It doesn't matter if we use some underhanded methods. I have a strong poison that I obtained from the Sichuan region. It is colorless and odorless, even the Tang clan fort uses it to refine hidden weapons. This poison isn't fatal to a physical invulnerability realm warrior, but it will suppress the opponent's strength. We only want to force the clan master to abdicate, not to kill our father and destroy the entire Yu clan. As for the divine martial sect, it's even easier. We can't kill them, so let the assassin from the Blue Dragon Society do it. In any case, he has to complete his mission, so it's better to hand it over to him. When the time comes, if the divine martial sect wants to cause trouble, we can just push all the blame onto the Blue Dragon Society. Whether they want to cause trouble for the Mu clan or the Blue Dragon Society, it has nothing to do with us. As long as we keep our mouths shut, everything will be fine. Moreover, if Yu Luchuan dies, father's intention of befriending the divine martial sect will also die. Unless he wants to destroy the entire Yu clan, we will still be in charge of the Yu clan." Seeing that Yu Dongxing had already thought of a complete plan, everyone present also had a look of struggle on their faces. They didn't know whether they should agree or not. Chen Dingwu didn't say anything. He directly sat beside Yu Dongxing. He had joined the Yu clan because of his relationship with Yu Dongxing. Naturally, he had to be of one mind with Yu Dongxing. Moreover, if Yu Dongxing became the clan master in the future, it would also be a good thing for him. Yu clan's ninth brother also clenched his teeth and said, "This matter wasn't us who wronged the first clan first, it was father and the first clan who wronged us first. If we don't think of a way, other than the first clan, the rest of the Yu clan's 8 branches will all be killed by the assassins from the Blue Dragon Society." In the end, the inner aura realm warrior from the collateral branch, Yu Ping, also nodded in agreement. To be able to become a direct descendant of the Yu clan and have such a status, it was enough for him to take the risk for once. Yu Dongxing said in a deep voice, "Since it's like this, then let's not delay any longer. We will take action tomorrow night. Ninth brother, go and contact the 5th and 4th clans people. fifth brother and the fourth prince both died in the hands of the assassins from the Blue Dragon Society. This debt will naturally be placed on the first clan. Yu Ping, go and contact the Yu clan's collateral disciples. You have the highest prestige among the Yu clan's collateral disciples. Old Shen, you are the strongest among the Yu clan's mercenaries. 70% of the Yu clan's mercenaries will be under your control. Whether it's wealth, cultivation resources, or status, you can use them all. Everyone, once this matter is successful, our Yu clan will definitely change and become a Yu clan that belongs to us alone. We will no longer have to suffer those cowards. Chapter 97. The storm was hidden under the calm sea, but in reality, it was already surging. However, no matter if it was Yuhenian or the Yu clan's first branch, they were all hiding in the main house and did not notice anything. Before the sky turned dark, inside the Yu clan's main house, Yuhenian, some important figures of the Yu clan's ninth branch, some outstanding warriors from the side branches, and some important henchmen and stewards gathered for a banquet. This was the Yu clan's tradition. Normally, everyone would eat their own food, but every 10 days, everyone would gather in the main house for a banquet. One reason was to increase the cohesion of the Yu clan, and the other was to discuss some matters that needed to be handled in the Yu clan when everyone was gathered together. The second reason was quite useful for the Yu clan. Everyone was used to discussing matters while eating. As for the first point, even if everyone gathered to eat together, the atmosphere wasn't harmonious. All kinds of hidden conflicts and fights often appeared on the dining table. This time, 3 people were missing from the banquet. One of them was killed while chasing after Chu Xiu, and the other 2 were killed by the Blue Dragon Society's assassins. Of course, they did not know that these 3 people were actually killed by the same person. Because of the pressure from the outside world, this banquet was not as lively as usual. Everyone was very depressed, and the atmosphere was so oppressive that it seemed like water could drip out. Yuhenian drank 2 mouthfuls of wine. He felt that the atmosphere was not right, so he turned to the eldest brother Yu Donglin and said, "Everyone, say a few words. Don't just stand there. Eldest brother, you go first." Yu Donglin stood up, raised his cup and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, don't worry. It's just an assassin from the Blue Dragon Society. It won't be enough to hurt our Yu clan. After this period of time, when the Divine Martial Sect sends people over, our Yu clan will definitely be able to overcome this crisis and use the power of the Divine Martial Sect to reach a higher level." After he finished speaking, there were very few people present who agreed with him. Only the people of the first branch and the other branches that had never had a martial artist of the inner gang realm raised their glasses in agreement because they were weak and did not dare to disrespect the first branch. As for the people on Yu Dongxing's side, they didn't even move. Yu Henian frowned and said to Yu Dongxing, "Third brother, don't just stand there, tell me." Yu Dongxing stood up and said in a deep voice, "Big brother, you make it sound so easy. Our Yu clan's direct descendants and collateral descendants have lost dozens of people, 2 inner aura realm warriors have died, and hundreds of servants have escaped. If this isn't considered a serious injury, then what is?" Yu Donglin frowned. His third brother always liked to go against him and never gave him any face. Hearing this, Yu Donglin also snorted coldly and said, "This is just a small matter. When the Divine Martial Sect sends people over, our Yu clan will be connected by marriage with the Divine Martial Sect. At that time, with the Divine Martial Sect's strength and resources, it will be easy to cultivate more disciples." Yu Dongxing said faintly, "Big brother, what you said is really easy. Disciples can be cultivated again, but what about the dead people? Can the 4th prince, 5th brother, and the direct descendants and collateral descendants who died come back to life? There is still a month before the Divine Martial Sect will send people over. What about the people who died in this period of time? Yu Donglin, the people who died were not from the first branch, so you don't feel sorry for them?" Yu Dongxing's last sentence actually called Yu Donglin by his name. In the Yu clan, which had strict family rules, this was already a violation of the rules and a big taboo. Yu Donglin pointed at Yu Dongxing, so angry that he couldn't say anything. Yu Henian suddenly slammed the table and shouted, "Third brother! What the hell are you talking about? Inviting the people from the divine martial sect was my decision. Are you dissatisfied with me? Quickly apologize to your big brother." With Yu Henian's position in the Yu clan, no one dared to go against him when he was angry in the past. However, Yu Dongxing revealed a cold smile. Apologize? Why should I apologize? Because of a person's stupid decision, he brought the Yu clan into danger. Do I need to apologize to this kind of person? Yu Dongxing looked straight at Yu Henian and said in a deep voice, "Father, you are old and have changed. You don't have the drive you used to have. Do you still remember the Yu clan's teachings? In order to build a clan, we must be cautious. When a horse steps into the martial world, we must take the lead. I have done the first two things. No matter if it is Bailing Manor or Linzhong County, who has ever said anything bad about my third brother? But what about the first branch? They used their Yu clan's identity to run amok outside. It was because Yu Luchuan listened to Nie Donglu's persuasion and sent his seventh brother to kill Chu Xiu. In the end, his seventh brother was killed. It was because of the first branch and Yu Luchuan's greed. Not only did they cancel the marriage, they also wanted to exterminate the Mu clan. Not only did they exterminate the Mu clan, they did not even kill everyone. That's why today's disaster happened. Father, you had to stay at the Bailing mansion and couldn't go out. It was me who followed second brother and led the team. I took the lead and fought against the bandits all the way to the western Chuchuan Shu kingdom to trade. I had to lower my voice to the local forces of the martial arts world, kowtowing and kneeling to them. Second brother even died in an accident in western Chu. That was how the Yu clan became rich. Look at the first branch. Big brother used the excuse of helping you stabilize the situation in Bailing Manor to stay in the Yu clan. But what did he stabilize? He was just afraid of death. When these words came out, Yu Henian and Yu Donglin's expressions changed. Other than those who stood on Yu Dongxing's side and knew the inside story, everyone else was shocked. They did not know what had happened to Yu Dongxing that he dared to say such things in public. However, what Yu Dongxing said made sense. Among the 9 branches of the Yu clan, the third branch was indeed more powerful than the first branch. This was all earned by Yu Dongxing himself. Yu Donglin was so angry that his face turned pale. He pointed at Yu Dongxing and shouted, "Third brother, what do you mean by doing this in front of father? Are you trying to rebel?" Yu Henian also looked at Yu Dongxing coldly. He did not expect that his son would have so many complaints and dissatisfaction towards him. He even dared to say it in public. However, one should not wash one's dirty linen in public. There were still the Yu clan's henchmen and stewards present. Hence, Yu Henian only said coldly, "Third brother, you drank too much. Go and rest." Yu Dongxing threw the wine cup in his hand aside and laughed coldly, "Father, I didn't drink too much. Didn't you ask me what I meant? Then I will tell you." Yu Dongxing stood up and kicked the chair behind him. He looked at Yu Henian and said in a deep voice, "Father, you are already old and not suitable to manage the Yu clan. Please step aside and let us manage the Yu clan. Also, hand over the first branch to the assassins of the Blue Dragon Society. Let the assassins of the Blue Dragon Society kill them. This way, the assassins of the Blue Dragon Society will complete their mission and the rest of the Yu clan will be safe. They are the main culprits in this matter." When he said this, the whole Yu clan was boiling. The third brother of the Yu clan actually wanted to force the Yu clan to abdicate. However, everyone was puzzled. Where did he get his confidence from? If Yu Henian died, it would be fine. However, Yu Henian was still alive. With his physical invulnerability, he could completely suppress the whole Yu clan. Yu Henian directly smashed the table and shouted angrily, "Unfilial son! Do you know what you are saying? If I don't cripple you this time, where are the rules of the Yu clan?" Yu Dongxing sneered, "Cripple me? Father, you should first see if you can release your qi. There are hundreds of ways to concoct the 3 worms, 3 flower powder. My concoction is not considered a poison, but it can suppress a warrior's qi. However, father, don't worry. I will not do such a disgraceful thing like killing my own father." After the assassins of the Blue Dragon Society kill the first branch, you will still be the elder of the Yu clan. However, for now, please go to your own room and rest for a while." When he said this, Euhenian's expression suddenly changed. He had just started to circulate his qi when he felt a sharp pain in his dantian. A force was pulling his qi, causing him to have to use all his strength to suppress it. He could not release his qi at all. Only now did he remember that at the table, he was the one who spoke first and drank 2 mouthfuls of wine. The others did not have the time to drink, and the people on Yu Dongxing's side did not even move. The loyal old butler of the Yu clan immediately stood in front of Euhenian to protect him. Yu Dongxing immediately shouted, "Do it." When he said this, the warriors on his side immediately took out their weapons. Someone even took out a whistling arrow and shot it towards the sky. Outside the main residence, the warriors on Yu Dongxing's side heard the whistling arrow and immediately started to kill the Yu clan's warriors who did not belong to their side. The Yu clan's wall was broken. In an instant, the Yu clan had already become a river of blood. The number of people who died was even more than the number of people killed by Chu Xiu. Chapter 98. Sometimes, the fastest way to kill someone was not with a sword, but with the human heart. Chu Xiu used a few days' time to kill less than 100 people under the Yu clan's eyes, just to bring endless fear and oppression to the Yu clan. At the last moment, he planted a seed of resentment in Yu Dongxing's heart and finally caused the whole Yu clan to explode. At this time, Chu Xiu stood on a roof not far from the Yu clan, silently watching the Yu clan's massacre. When those Yu clan's disciples attacked, they were incomparably fierce, completely aiming to take the other party's life. Although they were now divided into 2 camps, they were still the same clansmen. Now that they attacked so fiercely, it was not only because they were in opposing camps, but also because they needed to vent their anger, they needed to vent through killing. These days, under the shadow of Chu Xiu, they did not know when they would be killed, and did not know if they could live until dawn. This kind of hovering between life and death, even their own lives were not in their own control, the feeling was not good. That kind of repressed feeling that wanted to go crazy finally found a way to vent today. Weapons slashed through the other party's body, feeling the warmth of the blood spurting out. Until now, those Yu clan's warriors felt as if they were still alive, and at the same time, because of the stimulation of blood and killing, they became incomparably crazy. Chu Xiu closed his eyes, feeling the strong killing intent and crazy blood in the air. Both of his eyes began to gradually turn red, but his rationality suppressed this crazy killing intent. His skills belonged to the righteous path, such as the Xiantian skill, but most of them belonged to the demonic path. Condensing the killing intent and blood, comprehending the unique power of killing, was very beneficial to Chu Xiu, but at the same time, this power was also trying to influence Chu Xiu's mind. Lu Fengxian had once advised Chu Xiu to be more careful, not to kill too much, in case he lost his mind because of the killing intent. Chu Xiu knew this, but he didn't want to change it. Now, he was taking the initiative to integrate this power, because this was the path he wanted to walk. No matter if it was killing intent or baleful qi or anything else, these things were just tools in Chu Xiu's eyes. If a person was afraid of being controlled by a tool, then they were either trash or a failure. Meanwhile, at the main house, although Yu Dongxing was not as crazy as the other Yu clan members, he had almost reached the point where he would fight to the death. There were 4 people on Yu Dongxing's side. Chen Dinggu, Yu clan's 9th brother, and Yu Ping from the Yu clan's branch family all wanted to help him. The Yu clan's eldest brother's strength was mediocre. Although the Yu clan's loyal old butler's strength was not bad, he was already old and his battle strength had declined greatly. On the Yu clan side, the only one who could truly threaten Yu Dongxing and the others was Euhenian. Although Euhenian had been plotted against by Yu Dongxing and was poisoned by the 3 worms' 3-flower powder, he was still an outer aura realm warrior. Even if he couldn't release his inner aura temporarily, his battle experience and martial skills were not something that Yu Dongxing could compare to. Fighting 1 against 2, Euhenian directly suppressed Yu Dongxing and Yu clan's 9th brother. Although these two people had decided to force Yu Henian to abdicate, they didn't really have the intention to kill Yu Henian. After all, this was their father. If they were asked to commit patricide, forget about the fact that they couldn't do it. Even if they really did, their brother's reputation in Linzhong County would be tarnished. They would be completely banished to the demon path and be despised by everyone. Hence, they didn't dare to use their full strength. Instead, they wouldn't be able to defeat Yu Henian. The more they fought, the uglier Yu Dongxing's expression became. He had prepared a lot, but he still neglected the strength of an outer aura realm warrior. Would an outer aura realm warrior be the same as an inner aura realm warrior if they didn't use their inner aura realm warrior? He was still a little too naive. However, although their side was being suppressed, the Yu clan's eldest brother, the Yu clan's old butler, was being suppressed by his opponent and was even heavily injured. Chen Dingwu was Yu Dongxing's good friend. Naturally, he would wholeheartedly stand on Yu Dongxing's side. He wouldn't show mercy when he attacked. With his full strength, after a few dozen moves, Chen Dingwu had already chopped off the Yu clan's old butler's hands with 2 curved blades and finally stabbed the old butler's chest. Seeing the old butler who had served him for his entire life being killed, Yu Henian's eyes immediately turned red. This group of unfilial sons really wanted him to die. Yu Henian couldn't care less about the poison in his body anymore. He circulated the innate qi around his body, and with a loud bang, a cyan-colored aura suddenly exploded. The long sword in his hand instantly became incomparably heavy, as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. The sword aura exploded, directly sending Yu Dongxing's sword flying, leaving a mournful sword scar on his chest. After that, Yu Henian directly stretched out his hand, and the surrounding air started to become sticky. The Yu clan's 9th brother was shocked to discover that his body was actually involuntarily sucked towards Yu Henian. As his palm fell, it was like a yaksha exploring the sea, setting off countless waves in the air. With a loud bang, it landed on the Yu clan's 9th brother's dantian, directly crippling his dantian, causing him to vomit blood and fly out. Towards these unfilial sons, Yu Henian thought that not killing them was already merciful. In the blink of an eye, one of them was crippled, and the other was heavily injured. Yu Dongxing covered his own wound, his eyes bloodshot, and said hatefully, "See exploring divine palm. At that time, I begged you for a few months, but you never taught me this move." Yu Henian said coldly, You want me to teach you so that you can deal with me in the future?" Yu Henian didn't continue to talk nonsense with him. On the other side, after Chen Dingwu and Yu Ping joined hands, they had already heavily injured Yu Donglin, causing him to vomit blood and retreat. Seeing this scene, Yu Henian immediately made his move, using the same mountain suppressing sword art. This seemingly mediocre sword art, in Yu Henian's hands, exploded with incomparable sharpness. With a single mountain suppressing sword, Chen Dingwu's hands and Yu Ping's sword shattered with a loud bang. The long sword in Yu Henian's hand exploded with earth energy, and he killed Chen Dingwu on the spot with just a few moves. He didn't show any mercy at all. Looking at Chen Dingwu's corpse, Yu Henian said coldly, "My Yu family has provided you with food and clothing for all these years, and provided for your cultivation. In the end, you didn't even think about repaying our kindness. You deserve to die." Chen Dingwu wasn't his son, but an outsider. Moreover, an outsider who had a disloyal heart. If he didn't kill him, how could he keep him alive for the new year? On the other side, Yu Ping was completely stunned. Then, a mournful look appeared on his face. Defeated, they still lost. Their plan went smoothly, but they lost because of Yu Henian's strength. The strength of a physical invulnerability realm expert was too terrifying. Even if they attacked secretly, they wouldn't be able to withstand a few outbursts from the other party. Moreover, Yu Dongxing and Yu Ping didn't dare to kill Yu Ping because of their misgivings. In the end, the other party turned the tables around. Yu Ping was also very shameless. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, he immediately knelt down in front of Yu Henian and said with a trembling voice, "Elder, it was Yu Dongxing who tricked me into doing this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to attack you. The Yu family has its own rules. I am willing to accept the punishment, but I hope that Elder will spare my descendants and relatives." Yu Henian walked over and looked at Yu Ping expressionlessly. Suddenly, he struck his palm towards the top of Yu Ping's head. When Yu Ping was defenseless, he killed him with a single strike. Yu Ping was only a branch of the family, and they were several generations apart. Yu Ping wasn't even his biological son. After rebelling, he still wanted to accept the punishment and spare the lives of his descendants and relatives? Naive. However, after this palm strike, Yu Henian suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was also covered with a layer of black. The 3-bug 3-flower powder was still effective. However, there were hundreds of different recipes for the 3-bug 3-flower powder. Any 3 poisonous flowers and 3 poisonous insects could be used to concoct the 3-bug 3-flower powder. The effects of the 3-bug 3-flower powder were also different. In fact, Yu Dongxing still had a more potent poison in his hands. However, he didn't dare to use it. He was afraid that if he really poisoned Yu Henian to death, he would have to bear the crime of killing his own father. Therefore, he chose to use this kind of poison that was specially used to suppress innate qi. However, who would have thought that Yu Henian would be even more ruthless than him? He would rather use innate qi at the risk of getting injured. In the blink of an eye, he had already turned the situation around. Looking at Yu Henian walking towards him expressionlessly, Yu Dongxing's eyes flashed with a hint of madness. Yu Henian might not kill him, but he would definitely cripple him. For a martial artist, being crippled was no different from being killed. This was especially true for Yu Dongxing, who was a person with great ambitions. Crippling his martial arts was basically making him wish he was dead. He didn't want to die. Therefore, Yu Dongxing directly shouted, "What are you waiting for? What are you still waiting for? Don't you want to finish your mission?" Yu Henian's footsteps suddenly stopped. He suddenly looked at Yu Dongxing. Who was he talking to? What mission? Suddenly, Yu Henian felt that he seemed to have overlooked something. At this moment, the main door of the residence was suddenly pushed open. From time to time, the sounds of killing could be heard coming from outside. Under the bloody night, a black-clothed man with a long saber strapped to his waist stepped into the courtyard as if he was taking a stroll. He wore a black iron bamboo hat with golden patterns. His face was expressionless black iron mask. In this mournful night, everything seemed incomparably strange and austere. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.